gamers! Welcome to episode 3 of Ocarina Improv, the GDQ Hotfix Show special that dives in depth into Zelda Ocarina of Time Randomizer, or ZOOTR for short. I'm your host, Nuclear Reaction, and tonight myself and 9 whole grains will be breaking down an Ocarina of Time Randomizer seed as Tudos and Engel race through. The last 2 episodes, we've only had 1 seed to break down, so now we're going to really showcase how a race works in these settings. Before the seed starts, though, we would like to showcase a short video that kind of explains the basic of Ocarina of Time Randomizer. Did you ever want to know what exactly Ocarina of Time Randomizer is? In this video, we will discuss what ZOOTR is and what the differences are between it and the base game. The information we'll be giving pertains to the Season 5 standard rules and settings. However, there are many ways to customize your ZOOTR experience. The basis of Randomizer is to take all the unique items in chess, mini-games, and freestanding item locations and shuffle them amongst each other. This means that the Kokiri sword chest may end up having your bow instead. Or perhaps the heart piece in the spinning Goron pot may end up having the Megaton hammer. Songs are also shuffled amongst themselves, so you could get Saria's song from Sheik in the Desert Colossus. Additionally, the dungeon rewards, your 3 spiritual stones and the 6 medallions, are randomized between the dungeon bosses. So your fire medallion might be guarded by King Dodongo, rather than its normal location in the fire temple with Volvagia. ZOOTR allows players to start with the Door of Time open. That means you can freely shift between child and adult Link at any point. Expect to change ages multiple times throughout your journey. Aside from a few other small changes, this is the same Hyrule you've experienced in the classic Ocarina of Time. Randomizer takes all the best aspects of the original version and strengthens them to their fullest potential. In a way, you can look at every randomizer as its own complete puzzle. This puzzle will always be completable. Every playthrough, you'll be challenged to complete the game in a different way, with different logic dictating how you'll move through the game's iconic locales. You'll be amazed at just how many different uses there are for Link's equipment. And more than anything, you'll gain a deeper appreciation for this classic masterpiece. All right, that's the basics again of how a ZOOTR works. So tonight, both of our racers are going to be going through the same seed and trying to get to the end as fast as possible. And tonight I have with me 9 whole grains. I'm going to let 9 whole grains introduce himself as my co-commentator.
Morning, everybody. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Nukes, and thank you to everyone who's supported Ocarina Improv so far. Episode 3. Didn't think we'd get episode 1 off the ground, and here we are in episode 3. So thank you again to everybody for your support. Tonight's going to be a great treat. As Nukes mentioned, Tudos and Engel, the 2 runners from our previous 2 episodes, will be racing tonight. And we're going to be taking you inside the minds of our runners as they're going about the different paths. We presume they'll be doing some slightly different things. I don't know. We've heard there might be some collusion tonight. But, Nuke, should we bring in our runners here to introduce themselves?
Yeah, we've got both Tudos and Engel with us tonight. Tudos, if you want to take it off first. Oops, it looks like we're having some technical difficulties here with Tudos's mic. Engel, if you want to introduce yourself while we work that out.
Yeah, morning, everyone. I'm Engel, and I'd just like to thank you all for having me back on as a runner again. Tudos and I race often, and it's usually pretty close, pretty exciting. We often have different strats and take different routes, so it'll be good to see, a seed run from our two different perspectives at the same time here.
And I've always loved, it's not often, for those of you who maybe have watched an Ocarina of Time Randomizer race, or maybe even just spectated passively on one of them, we very rarely get to go into the minds of two different runners in the middle of the race. Usually it's on the commentary team to kind of identify where the differences are coming from, try to guess at the mindset, and then usually at the end of a big long race, while the runners are totally drained, you get a little bit of a post-game interview where all the salt comes out and the winner's always really happy. But we are going to get to hear a little bit of real-time thought process from two different runners, and we're going to do our best to not give each of these runners too much information on what the other one is doing by leading them with very pertinent questions, but it should be a great show and a great time tonight.
And really quickly, can you hear me now? Am I coming in?
All right. Looks like we can hear you now, Tudos. So go ahead and introduce yourself since you weren't given the opportunity earlier.
All right, I am Tudos. I did a solo run last week, and I'm really excited to be showing off the same seed with Angle. You're going to see us definitely do some different stuff here. You're going to see the same seed play out in two different ways. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, as Nine said here, I'm really interested. We with the show will have the power to take our runners into this voice channel and talk to them and see why they are making the choices they're making, and really go into in depth how differently you can play out Ocarina of Time with the randomizer. Before we get started, though, I do want to give a couple announcements here. If you're watching on YouTube, please go to twitch.tv/GamesDoneQuick if you're interested in looking at our live content, starting weeknights at 7 p.m. Eastern and weekends at 1 p.m. Eastern. Also, your bits and subs help support weekly hotfix content. Please consider supporting our daily content by subscribing or cheering. And if you at home have any ideas for your own show or one-off events, feel free to go to gamesdonequick.com/hotfix to submit your ideas. All right, we're gonna go ahead and count down our racers here. Both of them are ready.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
All right, we'll go ahead and get them a countdown. We'll throw them into different voice channels so that they can't hear our commentary, and we'll get to watch how both of them play out this Ocarina of Time Randomizer seed. So here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, and a little bit of housekeeping here at the start. We are continuing the same settings that you all have seen over the last couple of seeds. So we will be starting here as Child Link in Kokiri Forest. So they tepidly played around the idea of both skipping Mido's house here at the start, but it appears that both of them have opted to, not do that. But for those of you who have watched the last two episodes, the settings will be the same as you have seen. You can expect a lot of the same that you have seen over the last couple of runs that these two runners have done.
Mm-hmm. And to note on that, we do have the setting chest size matches contents. So just like last time, the not required progressive items are going to be in smaller chests, while our progressive items are going to be in larger chests. At the beginning here, our runners are going to opt, though, to be checking those smaller chests because they're going to want more health. Potentially, they could find bomb chews in those chests as well, which are super useful. So we got our first large chest here, the Kokiri sword.
Wow, well, probably don't need to dive too far into their heads to figure out what they're going to do here. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with the Ocarina of Time Randomizer, in the settings we're currently playing, the Kokiri sword, the butter knife as some people will call it, is needed to get into the Deku tree. And as you will see with our two runners on display here, the Deku tree is a very quick and typically painless dungeon, so a great find this early on. And a vanilla chest, I might add.
Yeah, super interesting to see that right there. It'll be interesting to see. So again, our runners need to collect all of the 6 medallions to get the bridge to Ganon's castle. Right now we don't know which dungeons have which dungeon rewards, but fingers crossed that we get our first medallion right off the bat here.
And if this is your first episode of Ocarina Improv, you may wonder, wait a minute, why is Tudos and Angle as well back walking all the way over here to the side? They're going to be checking these hint stones, and the hint stones here, the Sheikah stones in the vanilla game, give vital hints for getting through the seed, identifying where some of your key items are, identifying what dungeons you need to beat. There's a lot of information that can be gathered from doing that, so that's why you're going to see both of the runners grab these hints right as they're right on the way. And Angle actually showing you going about it that way with that little hop instead of going all the way around the back, actually a little bit faster. He was a little bit behind Tudos. Of course, typically execution is not where the big differences lie in Ocarina of Time Randomizer. Usually it's separate decisions, but how about this? Both inside the Deku Tree this quick.
Yeah, definitely good execution. Does give you an edge, but at the end of the day, if you and another runner go to different locations and one just happens to have your required items, that definitely can play a lot into who's going to be the winner at the end of the seed. So not a lot of deviation here, but definitely not expected since they both got their Kokiri sword right off the bat.
They really are just mirroring each other at this point. This is particularly close even for the same dungeon, but to kind of take a high-level overview here of the Deku Tree, again, for those of you who may not be familiar with what it looks like in Randomizer, or maybe watched an episode and want to hear it again, the Deku Tree, as I mentioned before, goes very quickly, and that's partially because you actually don't need any items outside of a Deku stick, a Deku shield, and certainly the Deku nuts make it quite a bit easier as well. They technically don't even need to use their Kokiri sword inside of this. You can see obviously that room, all they had to do was deflect the Deku Scrub's attack back at it. This you're able to climb up without actually taking down these skulls, although as you can see, Angle getting very close to one, it can be a little precarious, but this top room, they're going to need to make use of a Deku stick to light a torch. And outside of that, there's a very helpful skip that they can use to get around the basement without the need for a slingshot. And of course, we'll highlight that when it comes. But because of this and other reasons, this is typically a dungeon you'll see runners go to just about as soon as they have the chance.
Also, reminder that you don't need to know these skips to get, basement 1 skip is not something you need to know in order to complete one of these. It's just something that our runners do in order to complete this faster, but it's something you can learn over time. So normally you would need the slingshot here to get over to Goma, but they know this handy jump here that will get them there a lot faster.
Little setup, little lineup. We're gonna see a pause buffer to get that frame 1 roll. And the angle just a little bit off there from Angle, so gonna have to try it again. But, we do have to mention here, Nukes, Angle opted to skip the small chests. As we mentioned in Chest Size Matches content, the small chests have consumables, but they also have bomb chews, and that was one of the items that Tudos ended up finding here, and explosives paramount this early in a seed.
Yeah, and that's definitely a risk you take, as we mentioned earlier, with those checking those small chests with these settings. That bomb chews is definitely kind of the biggest item that if you're to find that, that's a lot of checks you can get. Bomb bag locks a lot of different checks, including things like a whole dungeon like Dodongo's Cavern. So that is a huge advantage for Tudos right off the bat here. But definitely could see that come into play with their routing choices after the Deku Tree.
And as Tudos works the same jump, we're gonna see Angle go ahead and try to get this 1 cycle onto Queen Goma. You saw there, used a nice trick called Broken Stick so that he can use this Deku stick multiple times without it breaking, and he stored a jump slash, so he's going to try to throw a Deku Nut here, knock it down, a couple stabs there, and wasn't able to get the one cycle. You do need 3 hits with that crouch stab in order to get the job done, so we'll see here Tudos is actually going to have a chance to catch right back up here with the bomb shoes in hand, so if Tudos is able to close that time, you'd certainly say advantage Tudos after one Deku.
Though there is, I think following these races can sometimes be a little complex because, we've got coming out, yes, Angle is coming out of this dungeon faster, but Tudos has bomb shoes, which, as we mentioned, is could play a huge part in potentially giving Tudos an advantage here. Or potentially Tudos could waste time checking bombable checks for nothing. So it'll be interesting. And that's the joys of randomizer. You just never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, joys and pains.
Yes.
It is a little at column A, a little at column B, but it is just kind of cool to see the visual right there of the fact that they were both on Goma's dying scene there, despite the fact that Engel got in so much earlier. So if you ever needed a visual to know how much time you lose by not getting the one cycle on that boss, I mean, there you go right there, side by side. So it's just kind of cool to see that laid out.
All right, looks like both of our runners continuing the same route, which definitely makes sense going up to Lost Woods. There is a song check over there, which songs are very important in Ocarina of Time Randomizer. 9, if you want to kind of explain why do we prioritize songs?
Yeah, so we prioritize songs for a number of reasons. First and foremost, there are some songs we need in order to beat the game, right? So if we have to beat Shadow Temple, we have to have Nocturne of Shadow. There's just no way around it in this glitchless rule set. There's no trick that we can use to get up, no item we can use to get up. So we're gonna have to get it. Zelda's Lullaby, another song that we more often than not absolutely have to have. So even if you look past any of the other songs, that's still 2 songs that you'll almost need to get in any seed. And beyond that, a lot of songs are very useful for utility. Moving around, not a lot of ways to get around in Ocarina of Time outside of places like here in the Lost Woods where you can utilize some warps, but for the most part, you're going to be relying on things like the Minuet of Forest, the Bolero of Fire, the Serenade of Water, which we already have, we started with, in order to maneuver around, to route efficiently. And for all these reasons and more, you'll typically see runners go for as many songs as they can, hope to chain a couple of them together, and just get a little bit more time back later on in the scene.
All right, I'm excited to see here in Lost Woods, we have our first 2 bomb checks that we'll get to see, likely from Tudos. I would imagine he'll check those. As well as a check in Sacred Forest Meadow. So if there's any juicy items on those checks, this could really help out Tudos.
Kind of waiting to see what the point of divergence here is going to be for our 2 runners. I would imagine that after... I imagine it's very likely that after they get this song, they'll probably both play Serenade of Water to knock out Child Lake, simply because that's also going to give them access to the Owl, Kepora Gabora, to get all the way back up to Market, right outside of Market. Also makes accessing Lon Lon Ranch much easier. So that's probably a pretty natural play, but we'll see what song they end up getting here. That can always change whatever your plan is as you're kind of piecing this puzzle together on the fly. Does appear that Angle will be the first one to hit the song. And It is the Song of
Song of
Storms. A
Storms.
very, very important song. Yeah, talk about that one a little bit, Nukes.
Yeah, so Song of Storms, although it doesn't help us complete any of the required dungeons that give us dungeon rewards, it does open a whole area of checks, and that also is another point of divergence that we might see from our runners here if one of them opts to go check over there. Quite a few items inside of Bottom of the Well, as long as a couple miscellaneous checks around Hyrule as well. Now we're starting to see a little divergence here as Tudos has to go back and get those explosive checks. Also opting to pick the hint stones I don't think Engel went and looked at.
No, and that's actually an important hint there, potentially.
Ooh.
So we saw Skull Mask. Skull Mask has the iron boots here, and for those of you who haven't seen the Skull Mask check, it is involved a mini trading sequence here that is done as a child. And then to get right after that, the Water Temple is foolish. Again, foolish hints means that progression items will not be inside of that area. So that means that Tudos, if we do need to beat the Water Temple, is going to, well, now knows that he can simply get in, get his key, beat Morpha, and get out. So some good information, and a Furor's Wind to top it all off. A very nice one. I don't think he's going to be scumming that bomb chew.
Again, that's for those who aren't really familiar. I feel like Furor's Wind, if you've only played vanilla Ocarina of Time, wasn't very useful in the vanilla version, but it is super useful in terms of racing, because it can let you just teleport to dungeons and certain points of dungeons really fast. So we see Engel getting the hook shot there in Lon Lon Ranch, which we've touched on in previous episodes, is definitely a very important item. I'd say that's about second in importance to the bomb bag in terms of what you get to access from it.
Yeah, it's that. I think those two usually are by themselves. And the Song of Storms check, this is another one that Engel opted not to do, I believe, because he warped straight out. And there's the big Goron sword, a very nice find.
Yeah, neither of those items that Tudos found are going to help in terms of progression, but they will help Tudos just move a lot more quickly, especially finding those very early on. Big Goron Sword is going to help with combat, and then as we said, Furor's Wind is just going to help with movement around dungeon to dungeon.
This is three big chests in a row.
Chest.
This is unreal.
All right.
Well, it's a checkerboard here on Tudos' tracker.
Yeah,
And meanwhile, look at what Engel's found here. Provided this isn't an ice trap, hold your breath, everybody. Okay, it's the legitimate Goron's bracelet. Man, Lon Lon Ranch absolutely stacked. Lots of woods full of big chests. What a start.
Which now, so Engels does have these important items more quickly than Tudos does, but Tudos should be going, those are, Lon Lon Ranch is just an area you typically hit up when you're playing Ocarina of Time Randomizer because there is that song there. It's a bunch of these, what we call Sphere Zero checks that you want to get early on. So likely we'll see Tudos go over there as well and get that hook shot, get that strength.
And one other thing to kind of note, and we'll certainly hit on this concept multiple times, is these checks that Tudos is doing right now, yes, it does look as though he's falling behind as a result. But it's important to note that Engel will more than likely come back and do those checks at another time, because they are very, very common checks. So, what the world is this? Goron City Foolish.
City Foolish.
This is unreal. Like, how do you get
all these big chests, but none of those are like, gonna help Tudos necessarily get really any checks here, but
I mean, this is kind of hilarious here. And you saw that Tudos save quit right there. Earlier I mentioned scumming bomb chews. Essentially what that means, and we'll use the term scumming for a couple of different things. As long as Tudos doesn't save after he uses those bomb chews, when he quits, he gets his bomb chews back. Of course, he does not get to keep the items. he will not be getting those fire arrows, and I believe that other slingshot he just kind of decided he probably didn't need either. But he does have 9 explosives here, so he can again kind of route a little differently if he so chooses.
Yeah, and that's why bomb chews are found in the smaller chests when we have chest size matches contents, because they are not refillable like a bomb bag would be. So the game assumes that logically you're not going to be able to get all the bomb checks with just that pack of bomb chews. So it puts it in the smaller chests.
Another kind of interesting thing to note, Tudos is going to be doing his child lake checks as well. Engel did not do these, went straight for the song, and straight to, I guess, didn't know it was a hook shot, but got his hook shot, got his strength, and decided, all right, let's go adult. So, you know, this actually, I don't know if you think it's too early, Nukes. I'd be interested in pulling Engel in and kind of asking him why he maybe left some of these checks behind.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good. Let me go ahead and grab Engel here.
Reaching in.
All right.
So, Engel, can you hear us?
Good morning.
All right, so Tudos is in go mode. How are you feeling?
Oh, perfect. I can quit now.
So what we wanted to bring you in and ask about is just, you know, the fact that you went adult very, very quickly after you finished Deku Tree and got your song, and of course, the very loaded Lon Lon Ranch. Why is that? Kind of walk the audience through why you might end up leaving some of those checks behind that you could have done in order to go adult more quickly.
Yeah, it's actually a play I kind of make pretty often. And the reason I tend to do this is just to pick up more songs more quickly here. So we started with the Forest Medallion, and I know that going adult to the Temple of Time will just automatically give me one of those songs by doing that. And then coming here to Kakariko is another song. Since I have Lullaby, I get another one in the graveyard. And, you know, we're hoping to maybe pick up some warp songs to make moving around as a child later a bit easier.
Very interesting. I gotta say, that was one of the rougher Deku trees I've seen you have. We okay? We good tonight?
You know, we're struggling, but we're trying to bring it back together here.
Well, thank you very much, Engel. I didn't really have anything else to add on top of that. Nukes, did you have anything else?
No, I think that covers what we were looking into. All right, we'll send you back to your room, Engel.
All right, thanks.
Such a way with words Engel has. The R in Ocarina of Time Randomizer stands for ASMR with Engel. It doesn't have to make sense, but...
We do have
Prelude of
2
Light.
dose now, as we said, getting that, going to be kind of just going over Engel's route here. Getting that hook shot. Should be grabbing, hopefully, that strength in the back as well.
And our song inside of that windmill there in Adult Cac is the Prelude of Light, a very useful song, and what a find there for Engel! The bomb bag.
Yeah, so this is what we were talking about, if maybe the bomb shoes would be super useful for 2 dose or not. And it kind of really hinges on, where's that first bomb bag? And that being on that Anju check that is very quick to check, all of a sudden makes those bomb shoes that 2 dose has spent time scumming not as important.
Yeah, if anything, it probably means that Tudos lost a little time, simply because the act of scumming and resetting does lose a little time in the long run. And what in the world is with all of these early check? Who did this? Hold on, sorry, I gotta look back to the show planning. Who's responsible for this? Okay. Well, the staff has apparently decided that they just wanted to give us all the items super early in this seed, which usually means, Nukes, we're gonna be here for 4 hours searching for one final item.
Yep. That's how, you want to get excited when you're finding all these items. That means, yes, I can complete my dungeons that I need to complete, but it's kind of a double-edged sword in a way where now you have a lot of areas available to check, which for us is great to showcase for all of you kind of the difference in routing that you can make when you have all these items. But for our runners, that's potentially a nightmare. Especially if they're ending up looking for one more item at the end to get into go mode.
Zudo's gonna go all the way to the very back of Lake Hyrule here for 2 more checks. Gerudo's Fortress, I believe, had that hint already. But again, there are some, oh my God, no way, no way! Why are there so many big chests?
Ah! Oh my goodness. Well, that is a definite 100% need that item. Every time you play one of these seas where you have to go fight Ganon at the end, you do need a bow, do need your light arrows, and you do need your magic. So that is very, very vital to find a bow.
I need to reiterate, I'm not hamming this up for the audience at home. I don't know that I've ever seen this many items this early on in a scene.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable.
Which, as I said, I'm happy to see this in terms of our, for the show tonight. This will be great because I think that will help lend for our runners to go to different areas. But, this could get really interesting. With just the vast amount of checks that they'll have available to them very early on.
And actually, Tudos. Actually, this is the perfect time to bring Tudos in. Because Tudos, aside from just getting hit with an ice trap, Tudos is being what I would call extremely thorough here. He has gone out of Child Lake. He is going ahead and grabbing a couple more bombable grottos here and the open grotto. So he is, I think it's diverged enough from this point that I'm curious to hear why he's opting to be this thorough.
Yes, they are definitely using very different play styles here. I'll go ahead and move Tudos in here and we can talk about what his strategy is.
Da-na-na-na. Welcome, Tudos. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
So, you're being very, very thorough on the child side of things. I know that pack of 10 bomb shoes is certainly helping you out right now, but why are you being so thorough here with the child checks this early on?
Well, I kind of am pushing the hints. Obviously, we have here's a nice one. So Bolero Fire is in the Ice Cavern. Cool. So we didn't really get a lot of path hints when we pushed our way up to Sacred Forest Meadow. So I'm kind of I'm like scumming these shoes. So I'm basically saving before I use these bomb shoes because once I use them, they're gone. So I'm using these shoes in these grottos, which all have these hints. And then I can basically just save them away if there's nothing good in there. And even though I won't get the item or keep the item, I can either I can come back for it later or, well, as well as I'll remember the hint that I saw in there. It's not like that goes away in your memory. So that's the main reason I'm being child for a while here is I just want to see the hints.
Very good. I mean, man, what a crazy setting that would be. You plug your brain into ZOOTR, and if you save scum, you do lose your memories.
I would be amazed if they could come up with something like that.
Well, never doubt the devs, as they say.
Thank you, Tudos, for the insight there on what your routing is. We'll go ahead and move you back into your channel.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that is really important. We've talked about the value of hint stones. So definitely being thorough. Although we mentioned that this bomb chew dilemma might hurt Tudos since he's taking the time to save scum these when there was an early bomb bag available. He may find some hints that will just help him better with his routing later on.
Yep, there's always, as long as you're gaining information, presumably it wasn't a bad idea necessarily. And for those of you who, again, may be new to this, Very often the seeds do not come down to who the better player is in terms of execution or the faster. It's really whichever one just does less of the game, typically. You know, even if the players are maybe a little bit outmatched by another, that's still typically only, I mean, what would you say, Nukes? Maybe 10 minutes at most, provided that they're still both really, strong players and know some of the tricks. So, I mean,
Yes.
that's one dungeon you do that your opponent doesn't do. So when Tudo says push hints and we talk about the value of hints, it can be very, very powerful to not have to do something that your opponent does.
Yeah, exactly. That's, let's say later on, Angle never sees the hint that Water Temple was barren. Well, Angle could spend some time searching Water Temple, and that's going to be, a lot more than just this execution might be. So it is, and that's, we were talking about, these different play styles we're seeing here too, where Angle is skipping checks, which is a great strategy. I know sometimes maybe you know your opponent, for example, is better at execution than you. If you take time skipping checks, you're going to gain more time back. However, it is a little bit more of a risk.
Yeah, and then there's the even deeper concept of you put off checks knowing that you'll more than likely come back there later when you can do the checks a little faster. Maybe you put off some of those lost wood checks saying that when I come back here as adult, I'll have bomb bag, I'll have hammer. I can get these later. I'll be back eventually. And, somewhere in that great mystical alchemy, you find a good player. And there's a little science to it, there's a little madness to it, and I believe that was Din's Fire up there on the top of Crater, so a very, very important thing to note. So that check up there at the top can be gotten in two ways, one of which is cooler than the other, we'll say. You can buy a bean as Child Link in the Zora's River, plant it as a child, you'll need Bolero Fire to do that, and then ride that bean up to the top, or with the right angle, you can backwalk with the hover boots and get to it. There's just enough of an angle in the polygon to grab it that way. So we'll see which way it has to be done. Tudos did find that hint earlier that the ice cavern is what holds our Bolero of Fire, but it's always possible that our runners end up finding the hover boots before that time.
I also want to note, we did talk about getting all these items really early. Getting Zelda's Lullaby really early is another one that, again, Zelda's Lullaby locks a lot of checks. It also locks a lot of areas. It's just one of the more important songs, I'd say, in Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, I would agree. So you definitely can't beat Shadow Temple without it. You probably can't beat Water Temple without it. And in most circumstances, you can't beat Spirit Temple without it either.
Yes.
So when we say important, crucially important.
There's also the fact that there are, fairy fountain checks throughout Hyrule as well. So it tends to be a pretty vital song. You don't normally see being able to complete Ocarina of Time Randomizer without Zelda's Lullaby.
Yeah, very, very, very uncommon circumstances. So we're going to see Tudos following presumably a pretty similar pattern here to what Angle has done to this point. It's probably going to be like this for a while, I would wager. The real difference and convergence in path is probably going to come after these two runners finish everything that's up here on the mountain. So when you find a bomb bag early on in Ocarina of Time Randomizer, of course you can get a lot of checks, and that's a very good thing, but it also means that that's all you need as adult Link to beat Dodongo's Cavern. So oftentimes you'll see runners come up here, do some of Goron City, do some of Death Mountain Crater, do some of Death Mountain Trail, and then at the end of it all, dip in here to, again, another very, very fast dungeon. So after this is where things are really going to start to get interesting.
Yeah, And they both will need to complete Dodongo's Cavern. If you look at the tracker, you can note that Dodongo's Cavern does have our fire medallion, which again, you're going to need all 6 of those medallions to enter Ganon's castle. Though honestly, I'd say if Dodongo's Cavern wasn't a required dungeon here, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw our runners still touch in here, because it is, again, just a lot of quick checks with the bomb bag and a lot of kind of, usually as we say earlier, spears of checks, where you're going to find these items a lot earlier on logically, which tends to give them a little more value.
It gives them more value, and also just knowing that it's a bomb bag that you got this early, everything just points to it. And you know, adult Kakariko Village that we see Tudos in is one of the spots that you'll see runners go to, you know, just almost any time they can right off the bat, simply because all of these checks happen so quickly, and beyond that, it takes very few items to do them all. So again, if you are new and you're curious about starting this and you're wondering, well, what do I do here at the start of the seed? Well, going to adult Kakariko Village, never a bad idea.
And speaking of starting this on your own, I am going to drop again that link in chat that will help you get started on your first Ocarina of Time Randomizer seed, as well as links to both our runners channels and mine and Nine Hole Green's channels. If you have any question, I know any of us 4 would be happy to help you out as well. Definitely would love to see more people get into the Ocarina of Time Randomizer seed.
I believe Engel had a 49-second on his Dante, so I dare say that Tudos is falling just a little bit behind.
But again, this is, you know, I think you've been talking a lot about how valuable is being able to do execution, you know, in one of these races, and that is a few seconds, does lose him some time, but overall, probably going to come down to where they decide to go and what choices they make overall throughout this.
Yeah, and it's certainly worth noting, it might not actually even be a bad idea to kind of grab Engel after this is done, because we're at a part in the seed where both runners have a lot of important items, right? We already have a strength, we can beat all of Forest Temple, we have a warp to Forest Temple, so that's certainly an option, but they've got bombs, they've got hook shot, really kind of all up to them at this point. So I guess kind of looking ahead here, let's plan to grab Engel as soon as he finishes Dodongo's Cavern.
Yeah, we can see where Engel's kind of planning to go. I think that's a great idea. I think it's also important to note that, yeah, although Forest is a dungeon that can be completely completable right now, it is a stone, so not very valuable in terms of what we need to do for the end game. But you never know what could be hiding in there.
Yeah, and I believe we got a hint earlier, actually, about Path to Forest Temple being Path to Bongo Bongo. And given that we saw earlier that Din's Fire was on top of our Death Mountain Crater, might start to connect some dots here and think that that could potentially be our hover boots. And if those are our hover boots, then we can just go grab Din's Fire while we're at it.
I did see a question in chat asking, what's just faster, going backwards or rolling? The general rule for that is if you're moving in a straight, kind of like a straight path, that would be 5 or more rolls, you're gonna want to back walk. If you're going in a path that's kind of not straightforward or is less than that many rolls, you'll probably just want to roll.
And plus, I mean, when you backwalk, you get to mash the shield button.
Yes.
And that's the real that's the real joy.
The
is
Hylian
mashing that
urge
shield
to
button.
mash your shield button. All right, looks like Angle is wrapping up here, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab Angle here and we can ask what he plans to do now with all these items.
All right, Engel, have you recovered from that harrowing boss fight?
Oh, that was very tough. I'm glad you didn't pull me in during the middle of it.
Well, we try to respect serious time around here. So, Engel, we have to know at this point, you've got a lot of items at your disposal. You got a lot of things that you could end up doing. What is the plan at this point?
Yeah, this is a tough predicament. Almost too many items at once, right? But I think the first step is to play this minuet song here and get another song. I know I need to beat both Shadow Temple and Spirit Temple, and I don't have Requiem or, well, there's Nocturne. So we got one of them, right? So that's one of the things I was looking for. The other is maybe clean up some Lost Woods checks, maybe, I'm thinking maybe even go to Ice Cavern here, I have a bottle.
You have a bottle. All right, well, Engel, we appreciate you chatting in here and kind of laying out some information for us. And congratulations again on your harrowing fight with the king. Best of luck with the rest of your fights.
No, thanks.
Such a nice chap,
Yes.
that Engel.
Yeah, I'm seeing more questions about fast and optimal movement here. Side hopping is very fast, but you have to, I believe those are like frame perfect inputs you need to do in order to have it be the fastest movement. But kind of the general answer here for that would be movement is very situational in Ocarina of Time, kind of depending on where you're going.
Yeah, and I would say again, worrying about the optimal movement certainly is kind of nice, but the time that you'll really lose, I would say, is mostly inconsequential if there's a moment where backwalking was a little bit quicker. But if you're going across Hyrule Fields, do yourself the favor,
Yes.
backwalk and save your fingers for a little bit. Give yourself a little time to think. So Engel mentioned he was going to do a little cleanup here. And based on his answer, I don't know that he has the hint that we had discussed earlier. Unless he ended up getting it in one of these grottos or is going to get it in one of these grottos.
Yeah, I want to say it was in one of these. I feel like Tudos was in one of these grottos when he found it, so it should be creeping up here soon. Yeah, he's covering all those checks that Tudos was able to get earlier with the bomb shoes. Which again, this is why we mentioned that, although Tudos got those bomb shoes earlier on, he had to unfortunately waste time with save scumming them. So even though Engel is doing these same checks here, Engel isn't going to have to save scum his bombs, which is going to help him have a little bit more time on Tudos in terms of these checks here.
Time adds up, and it does appear that Engel is going to go to Zora's River. So I mention this every time, but I want to mention it again for those of you who maybe have not heard my rant about why I love Lost Woods so much. Lost Woods in Ocarina of Time Randomizer is a conduit for working all the way across the map. We saw Tudos get to Child Goron City early because of this. Now you're seeing Engel use this as a very quick and easy way to get over to the Ice Cavern and Zora's River. This area doesn't get nearly enough love in vanilla Ocarina of Time because there's not really ever a reason to use it for its teleportation purposes. But here in Rando, we love it. And Angle's gonna go ahead and make a very aggressive dip into Ice Cavern right now. My home! I love it here.
Definitely a bold play, but it could pay off.
Yep, and it's great divergence as well. And Ice Cavern, one of the reasons why it's such a, if you've been in any chat ever for an Ocarina of Time randomizer race, you'll see the joke rush ice all the time. And it's because this is one of the most out of the way places you can go in the game, right? If you don't have that nice little warp from Lost Woods that we just saw, you're gonna have to run all the way up river. That can take a lot of time. There's not a warp song that gets you up here. And really, it's only a handful of checks, but it also is a song. And sometimes it's a song that you have to have. And I think logically, right now, we have to have this song. Now, we mentioned earlier, we know Bolero Fire is in here, and we know that our Din's Fire is at a place that we logically need our Bolero Fire to get to. So, with that said, Angle can pretty comfortably go here knowing that the game wants me to come here. Maybe I'll find something else along the way.
And I think this is a good opportunity now to bring Tudos in and ask Tudos what his routing decisions are coming up here.
I agree.
Grab Tudos. Da-da-da-da.
You caught me.
Tudos.
You caught me at a great time. I just defeated the hardest boss in the game.
Yeah, I can hear your heart in your throat right now, Tudos.
That was a tough one, but we got past him.
So, I know that you've already beaten the hardest part of the game, but now you have another very difficult decision in front of you, and that is, where in the heck are we going? We've got bombs, we've got a hook shot, we've got warps galore. What are we doing?
Well, we have a very interesting conundrum, which doesn't come up very much in randomizers. I actually found 3 path hints for the graveyard being path for Twinrova, which I don't know if I've ever seen that. So there's going to be at least 2 items in graveyard that will give me access to Twinrova, or give me an item that will give me an item to get Twinrova, basically. So obviously I found the Mirror Shield there, which is a good thing. But now we need to figure out what the heck the bow and the Epona song we got in the graveyard are for the Twinrova here, because Epona could just, oh no. I just got
Take it off, come on.
Anyway, Epona's song could just means that's how you get to Spear Temple, right? You have to jump over the bridge, complete complete Gerudo's training grounds, and then cross the desert to get to Spear Temple that way. Or that could mean the bow is used for something to beat Spirit Temple. So I have a lot of options here. I'm actually going to try to start making my way over to Forest Temple. Even though it's a stone dungeon, it's hinted that there's something for Bongo in there.
All right, so the hints that you found kind of paying off a little bit, giving you a little bit of direction.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the reasons why I went big hints early. And I'm not sure if Angle would have seen the 3rd graveyard hint for Twinrova, so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
I definitely agree. All right, Tudos. Thank you for letting us see your routing and what's going on, your insight here. I'll go ahead and send you back into your room. We'll keep going.
Good luck on commentating.
Yeah, I think that's definitely some good points made there by Tudos about kind of how it works to get out to the desert, and how if you know the right strats that, you know, might not need all those items.
Yeah, it's a good point, and more than that, I think it's so tempting, I think, when you have a seed like this to really just try to go out of your way and go straight for density, but, you know, it is important to try to be as precise as you can, and that's why these runners are really trying to piece together as time goes on, where they're supposed to go, what they're supposed to do. So I very much like that we get to hear them both as time is going on here, because there is a lot of, I mean, there's some convergence now, but there's going to be probably even more as time goes on towards the back.
And I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of times, since, you know, when you do watch an Ocarina of Time Randomizer race, the commentators just have to kind of guess what the thought process is, which I think there's a lot of the kind of the beauty and almost the curse at the same time of Randomizer is that there is a lot of ways that you can route these. And I think there's a lot of valid paths that you can take. And just like being able to have that insight and hear from our runners why they're making these choices is super valuable. Because I feel like there's, you know, usually there is, unless you're doing something like checking an area that was hinted as barren, and, you know, you should know that there's nothing there, I don't think there's really any wrong routing choice per se.
I agree entirely. And the other thing to kind of note here, and this is one of the great discussions our Ocarina of Time group kind of comes up with as time goes along, is, you know, you really need to, as you're going through this, and as you play more, you'll kind of get into this as well. It's very easy, I think, to get frustrated when you feel like you made the right decision, but your result isn't what you want. So I think it's so easy to be fixated on the results, even if the decision was right. And that's just part of this game. So you just have to try to make good decisions, and sometimes those good decisions won't pay out the way you want.
Exactly. Especially with this game. I've seen runners get burned far too many times by making a choice that makes sense. There's density there. You're going to get a lot of checks, and you just end up wasting time instead, unfortunately. Or you see, you know, Engel coming here to Ice Cavern and getting something that is vital, that is going to be helpful early on. See what song is here. Yeah, unfortunately, unless I missed it, looks like Ice Cavern Rushing Ice was not the play here. Though I don't blame Engel for coming here, you know?
No, I don't blame it either, because again, we've talked a little bit about logic, and it's a very difficult thing to kind of explain it on the fly, but essentially there is a guiding force throughout these seeds that creates a path that the players can follow. So every check can be accessed in this format without the use of major glitches, which means that eventually every check will be accessible. So because Engel knows that the seed does want him to eventually go out to that location, Ice Cavern, and grab that particular song, he can pretty reliably assume that even if all he gets is the song there, it wasn't necessarily a risky play or a bad play to do so.
Exactly.
And some people in chat are mentioning this, and I just kind of throw, you know, my endorsement behind it as well. Hopping in and watching runners as they do random weekly races or races against other people, there is so much that you can learn just by watching players play. The decision-making part of it comes with time, I would say, and experience, but there's all sorts of checks you might not know about, all sorts of little tricks, and Nukes and I constantly joke that every time we watch somebody race, we learn something new, and that's not really an exaggeration.
Yeah, no, there is so much to learn, even if you've been playing this game for a long time. There's lots of different strategies, lots of different ways to approach the routing, lots of little tricks you can pick up on. So definitely the best way to learn is, just keep watching. Also great to find, you know, as I said, I did put those links in chat again, but finding runners that can maybe, you know, explain what they're doing and why they're doing is super valuable as well. Because I think the biggest obstacle into getting into Ocarina of Time Randomizer can be just understanding how this, when we talk about the logic here, how that works.
So we have some more, I guess, probably our first point of major divergence here. And again, the big reason we're seeing this divergence is because of the hint that Tudos had. He knows that he has to come here, whereas in Engel's mind, it doesn't make a lot of sense to go here this early, I would say. So, you know, if you want, this might not be a bad time to bring Engel back in and ask what he's planning on doing here, or we might wait a little bit just to see if he's only dipping it. Up to you.
Yeah, let's go ahead and bring Engel in here, because I am curious since he doesn't have those hints that Tudos has had.
So Engel, I know the Switch Sports demo is currently out right now, but you weren't supposed to go bowling. And that's my one bombshoe bowling joke I get to make tonight.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay, it's okay. So what is the plan here at this point? You've gone back child. Is this just for these few checks here, or are you gonna back clean up a little bit?
There's actually a lot I can do as child right now. We do have Song of Storms, so the well is a very big area that I could go to. So that's part of the child push here. The other is now that I have all of these warps, I can more easily, you know, grab that skull mask and get those iron boots that we will be needing for Water Temple. So it's kind of a circle around all of that. And then I don't know if you guys saw it on the stream or not, but the item on top of the volcano and crater was the Din's Fire. So now that I have Bolero, I can actually get a bean and get that Din's Fire.
Yeah, and burying the lead here, more than just, speaking of Bolero and everything on the mountain, what a find from Dape there.
Yeah, a find. Fire Temple's a stone dungeon, so we don't necessarily want to go there, but, you know, we'll take the item for now.
I think I'm actually here going to take the opportunity to bring in Tudos so that we can go ahead and take our first wellness break of the night, because we are coming up on the 1 hour mark here. So let's bring in Tudos and allow both of our runners to find a good spot to stop here.
Sounds good.
All right, I got Tudos and Engel both in the room here.
Uh-oh.
We're gonna take our first wellness break here. We're coming up close to the 1 hour mark, so I just want to hear from both of you that you're in a good spot, and I can count down, and we'll pause the timer.
Before I say anything, Engel, you skipped Mido's house, right? That's an agreement we totally made.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Definitely skipped it.
Okay, in that case, I'm in a good spot.
All right, Engel, you're good?
Yeah, whenever you want to count it down.
All right, I'll count it down here for you both to stop in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, pause. All right, chat. We are going to take a quick wellness break, so take this opportunity, maybe go use the bathroom, grab a snack, fill your drink, and we'll be right back with more Ocarina of Time Randomizer. Stay tuned. Hey, all you cool cats and gamers! Welcome back to episode 3 of Ocarina Improv, the GDQ Hotfix show special that dives in depth into Zelda Ocarina of Time Randomizer, or ZOOTR for short. I'm your host, Nuclear Reaction, and tonight myself and 9hole Grains will be breaking down Ocarina of Time Randomizer in a race between Tudos and Engel. Before we get back to our race, I do have a couple of announcements. Frost Fatales is coming up. Tune in February 27th to March 5th. You can type command FF in chat or go to gamesdonequick.com/rainfatales for more information. Also, make sure to tune in tomorrow, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern, for Going Places, a show about handheld and regional exclusive games. All right. We're going to go ahead and count down our runners. We'll move them. We can't really talk about the seed, unfortunately, before we count down our runners and let them get started again. So I want to check in. Tudos and Engel, are you both ready to resume the race?
I am indeed ready.
Ready whenever.
All right, we'll go ahead and count them down, and then we'll kind of get back to what's been going on here for everyone in chat. All right, the race will resume in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, for those of you just tuning in, kind of what's going on here, we've got them in quite different, their paths have kind of diverged here. Tudos is taking a first dip into Forest Temple where Engel has not. He does have a hint here showing that this is path, I believe, to Bongo Bongo, this dungeon. So definitely somewhere that they need to go in order to complete this game. Engel clearing up some child checks here going into bottom of the well. So definitely showcasing how you can approach the different dungeons in Ocarina of Time Randomizer, how you can approach the seed in general and the routing.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of just a great example of, you know, where a real advantage can be kind of forged because of something that you did earlier on. Because Tudos got the hint that something was here in Forest Temple, that was one big chest that didn't have what he needed, but there's another big chest coming up here, and he could really find himself separating, or he could just, you know, get frozen. Me and my big mouth. Meanwhile, Engel on the other side gets the long shot here. So my entire narrative tossed away.
Wow.
There's another big chest. And everything's coming up Engel right now.
And that is 100% necessary. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. The well is loaded. Now, both of our runners here are in neither of these dungeons are required. We did touch on this earlier, but in Ocarina of Time Randomizer, the settings that we are using here tonight, you need the 6 medallion rewards in order to spawn the bridge to Ganon's castle. And how that works is in Randomizer, the dungeon rewards are shuffled, and these are only on the dungeons that have bosses in them. So in tonight's case, right now, Engel is in bottom of the well, which does not have a boss, isn't going to give a dungeon reward. So it's completely, you know, you don't know if you're going to have to go in there or not. On the other hand, Tudos is in what we call a stone dungeon tonight. And what a stone dungeon means is that has, oh my gosh, is that another strength?
I think that's gold, and there's another big chest outside of this room.
Wow. So I'm blown away. Sorry, chat. So stone dungeons. That means that there is a spiritual stone as the reward for beating the boss in that dungeon, which is not required to get to Ganon. However, it could still have important items inside the dungeon itself. So both of our runners in what would appear to be not required, potentially dungeons, but definitely paying off here for Engel. Should pay off for Tudos, but
well, we know that it's going to pay off
Yes.
for Tudos eventually.
Yes.
We got a hint for it, but I mean, Engel is, I mean, even that's not a bad find. Zora Tunic nice with the few hearts as he has and knowing we need
Yes.
Water Temple, but I mean, just this is unbelievable here. This is almost the entire toolkit this early on in the seed, and I mean, what a great way to illustrate again. Tudos comes in, sees 2 immediate big chests in an area where his early route led him to, and an advantage that he's kind of created for himself with seed completion. Meanwhile, Engel makes the play for pure density here, not really going off of hints, and lo and behold, half the game is waiting for him inside his location. So this is why we play it. What a fun way for this to diverge.
yeah, and you have to wonder too, especially if you're potentially rooting for Tudos here. Will Tudos even when will Tudos go to the well at this point? Because I think Tudos has a lot of items to work with and could potentially be heading to Shadow Temple here. Who knows, you know, depending on items, but yeah, that can be the tricky part here in these races.
Yeah, it can absolutely be tricky, and You know, the good news here for Camp Tudos in this scenario is he is going to have to go back child eventually. We do know that we're going to need to beat Jabu Jabu's belly, so if he does not end up going into bottom of the well before then, it's very likely that eventually he'll have a good time to route it in. We'll see how long that takes him, but we know where Iron Boots are as well, so we at least have the knowledge now, or Engel has the knowledge rather, of everything that's needed to beat Water Temple, and that's not nothing this early in a seed to have, essentially 3 medallion dungeons in your pocket.
But there's still, even so, I feel like you never really know. Oh, there's the magic. All right. That's important. Very important. Definitely required in any of these seeds where you have to beat Ganon. So, and that will help get Tudos into Shadow Temple. Looks like Tudos gonna continue to clear out here, though.
Engel, what is this?
Oh my goodness. Well, there's the hover boots. Oh, wow.
I've never seen bottom of the well this
Wow.
Pull Engel in. Pull Engel in.
All right. Let's get Engel in here.
We need a candid reaction. What in the world, Engel? I've never seen a bottom of the well like this.
Yeah, that's not great for me, I'll be honest here.
Well, why is that? Because chat and myself, we're all losing it here because you found half the game inside of bottom of the well. So
yeah,
what has you down about that?
The fact that we went out to Ice Cavern and now really didn't need anything from there. Now that we have the hover boots, I can use those to go get that Din's Fire, so I don't need to go get a bean and plant it. Also, there's the worry that maybe Tudos got to that well before me and had all of those items sooner, so...
Well, actually, that's a good concept, though. So we didn't really talk about this in terms of your, solo seed that you did, but talk a little bit about that Ice Cavern play that you made, that not being necessary, and how that kind of plays in a one-on-one race. And, you mentioned time loss as a result. So just kind of briefly illustrate that concept for people who may not be familiar.
Yeah, so the early Ice Cavern play feels pretty good when you're going to it there because we knew the song was going to be either Requiem of Spirit, Bolero of Fire, or Song of Time. Obviously, Requiem of Spirit would have been the best because we have to go to Spirit Temple. Song of Time would have been okay because it might be needed for our Water Temple we're going to have to go to. And like I said, Bolero helps us go get that Din's Fire. But yeah, overall, we didn't really get a ton from, kind of a lengthy dungeon. So when you're racing an opponent, you're saying, well, maybe they didn't go to that first. Maybe they went to the bottom of the well first and they got all of these items. And, you're wondering if you're now behind them in the race.
And if you do feel behind, what's the typical course of action in that scenario? You've been in many one-on-one races, so I'm sure you've been in that a couple of times.
Yeah, it's tough. You don't want to assume too much here, but with all the items we just got, it's kind of like oh no, we just got to rush our dungeons now. I'm doing a little cleanup because I needed to wait on time of day to get the Skull Mask. But then we're going to grab those Iron Boots, go beat Water Temple, and then probably go straight into Spirit Temple.
Well, excellent. Thank you for laying out exactly what your path is going to be for the next...
And we're going to get frozen.
Hey, after that bottom of the well, you had to come back down to earth in a painful way. But thank you for laying out the next 20 or so minutes of your game. That's a good preview for the audience.
It's very interesting. I think this is a concept that, we're sitting here just completely popping off. Engel found a lot of great items there, depending on what Tudos does, which looks like Tudos has now gone back child, but this could be a huge advantage for Angle. But Angle's over there feeling like he's real behind now, which, that's something you face a lot when you're in these races. Because you can only think, oh man, my opponent probably did this, or maybe they didn't, and super interesting.
Yeah, it really is. And especially on seeds where maybe you only needed one hook shot to beat the seed, right? Maybe it's a seed where you don't need the long shot, and you find a hook shot in a very specific location, and the other hook shot is in a, just an equally wild and out of the way location. And you find your hook shot way late, you feel bad about it, and it turns out your opponent found the other hook shot way late. And, you just never know.
Mm-hmm.
But, I should have kind of called it that we'd bring Engel in and he would just be his very calm, focused self. And like, you just found half the game, Engel, how are you feeling? Not great about it. It's just, what a fun guy. Love Engel.
Yeah, I do think, though, the fact that Tudos has now gone Child, again, if you're rooting for Tudos here, hopefully he's going to dip into bottom of the well here. But yeah, this was something, that was the first Song of Storms that both of our runners found, and neither of them opted to go there before the 1 hour mark. So it's just, one of those optional places that sometimes has some goodies in it.
Yeah, for those of you who expect that to happen, bottom of the well is a cruel place at times. It's also a really interesting dungeon because we haven't really even gotten to talk about this sort of concept. But bottom of the well, you can get in without being able to fully clear it here. So when Engel went in, he had his bomb bag and he had his Zelda's Lullaby. So he could clear through all of it without, giving it a second thought, and that's always a nice feeling. But there are seeds where you will have to go into bottom of the well with only, let's say, your Song of Storms. You won't actually even have the opportunity to clear any more, and then you might even have to come back a second time later on once you get a bomb bag or Zelda's Lullaby to fully clear it. So that's, it can be a cruel place at times, but it does indeed look like, well, let's see. Tudos is probably going to turn in the Keaton mask first, but is he going to dip bottom of the well in the process? So if Tudos goes bottom of the well here, then Engel's fear will sort of become a reality because, again, Tudos has not gone Ice Cavern, but more importantly, I don't know how long it's going to be before Engel goes to Forest Temple. He still didn't mention that hint, and that is still one very tangible piece of advantage that Tudos has.
Yeah, but it is kind of looking to me, I don't know. It's hard to tell sometimes with, just how you might route right here. And Tudos is clearly checking skulls, grabbing skulls around here, going to turn in that mask. But I think we might not see Tudos go into bottom of the well. Which again, as we said, us as the viewers, we're sitting here thinking that, if let's say Tudos doesn't go in there, that could at first seem, well, that's silly, that's important. There's items in there. But we know that because we already saw Engel go in there. We also saw Engel go into Ice Cavern, and we could be saying the same thing there, but there was nothing in Ice Cavern, so.
Just remember, everybody, if you aren't sure what's going on, just commentate the seed instead. You get all the information you need, and you can always make the right decision. So this might be a kind of a good time here to talk about the sometimes hints and the always hints, because Engel did not do Skull Mask there just for the fun of it to check it. We did find a hint very, very early on that said that the Skull Mask had the Iron Boots, and you will always have a hint in our current Season 5 settings that will tell you what Skull Mask has, because it is such an out-of-the-way check. The devs are cruel at times, but they're also, very loving at times as well. So you will never have to worry about what is on that. You'll always get it hinted. And likewise, there will also be hints for what is on various Skulltula accounts. So you see right now, Tudos is gathering up to probably close to 20 skulls, and he's going to turn those in. In the current settings that we have right now, 40 and 50 are turned off. But in typical Season 5 settings, you may have to collect up to 50 Skulltula tokens in order to get an item that you need. But again, thankfully, 30, 40, and 50 skulls will always be hinted for you.
Angle, thankfully, getting the early boss key here. Both of our runners do know that Water Temple is barren, so that is very nice to find that. Don't have to waste much time in here. And Tudos, thankfully, coming here into bottom of the well. I'm gonna find all those items that Angle just got. So again, as we just explained, now that puts Angle, I think, a little bit more at a disadvantage since he did go into Ice Cavern that unfortunately didn't pay off. I think we'll have to grab Tudos in here when we're done going through bottom of the well as well.
Tudos will give us a better reaction, I would say here. He'll give us, we'll be able to ham it up with him. We'll have a little fun, but if you blinked and missed Water Temple, don't worry. That is the best case scenario for a Water Temple right there that Angle just did. Very first check for the boss key, and I'm almost a little disappointed that it was that because Water Temple's a great, maybe the best dungeon to kind of explore how the randomizer format changes how that dungeon plays, but there you go. It turns out if you have the boss key, you can kind of just go right over to the end and not worry about any of the rest of the dungeon, so good on Angle for being able to complete that. And now he did say that after he did Water Temple, he would probably start heading over in the region of the desert. So Spirit Temple and potentially Gerudo Training Grounds after that. It does appear that he's going to go grab his Din's Fire ahead of time, though, since he is going to be able to get this using the hover boots trick that we talked about earlier. So you can kind of keep an eye on that screen here in a moment. It's a great trick to know, one that can really save you in a pinch if there's an item up there like there is this seed.
I'm looking at all our items here. It looks like collectively between the two seeds, from a commentator's point of view, I think we're only missing Boomerang?
Well, yeah, what a great time.
Oh, well.
Spoke that one into existence, dude. It's incredible.
Commentator's blessing tonight.
You know, I just realized, what if that was a fool?
I was thinking about that when you kept saying that it was there, that, well, we don't know. But I didn't want to curse it.
Well, thank you for not doing that. That would have turned everything on its head. And Song of Time for Angle here. So this check right here we call Burning Cack. So in vanilla Ocarina of Time, you get that check after you beat the Water Temple, the Forest Temple, and the Fire Temple. There's that scene where you go to Kakariko Village and presumably Bongo Bongo, I don't know, you can't see it at the time, attack Sheik. And it's this big dramatic scene. Of course, Kakariko Village is burning. And as a result of all that, you get the Nocturne of Shadow. So essentially, in Randomizer, if you beat whatever dungeons hold the Forest Medallion, Fire Medallion, and Water Medallion, and go to Kakariko Village, you get that check and you earn whatever song is on that. So if you ever hear us say Burning Cack, that's what that check is. It's typically a check that you get much, much later in a seed, but again, this seed is moving and grooving right now, so we're just getting all the stuff we need really quickly.
Yeah, we have truly been blessed with items and just, yeah, everything in the seed. Which again, we'll see if that ends up being a curse for our runners here, where they're going to be having a lot of locations to get their last required items or not.
And again, those of you on Team Engel, really, really hoping that he finds the hint about Forest Temple very soon. That is, I would say, the big deal. Tudos is about to get his item, so get ready to pull him in here, because the pop-off is probably occurring right now.
Yes.
And
Trying to remember, was there another item back here, or if I should bring him in now? Nope. All right, I'm gonna bring in
go ahead and
Tudos
grab
here.
so Tudos, what in the world was that?
Well, this place was pretty loaded. There's a lot of stuff in
Yeah,
here.
I'd say so.
So what do we get? Let's recap this. So we got a long shot, and keep in mind for the logic that some things were locked by different items for logic. The long shot, and just keep in mind for this logic as well, the lens is not required to get those invisible ones that are kind of in the middle of the room there. So we had the long shot in one of those. We had 2 strengths. One was locked behind, I believe, a bombable dirt patch, I want to say. Then the other one was in the Gibdo room in a coffin. So we have 2 strengths there. We have gold golems from that. And then we also found our hover boots. We know where Din's Fire is as well. So it's looking really good. We can start pushing a bunch of dungeons here. I just need to turn in the skull mask so I can get the iron boost and then becoming an adult.
So then what, obviously once you get that skull mask and the boots, you'll have Water Temple. What is your plan outside of pushing your progression dungeon?
So once I get iron boots, I'm definitely going to hit up Water Temple first. After that, I believe I can just go grab Din's Fire on top of the cone, and it should allow me to do Din's Fire because I'll have hover boots. I'll allow me to Shadow Temple, so I'll have Din's Fire, I'll have hover boots, I have magic, I have hook shot, I have bow. I can do Shadow Temple. At that point, I still need both items to enter Jabu's belly, so we definitely want to push that Sacred Forest Meadow path into a little more that I just read now, pretty ironically. And then we also have Spirit Temple, which I theoretically can do, but there's still a lot of questions I need to answer about that, because I need to figure out how am I going to get out there, is it required child Spirit Temple, things like that. So I still have a little bit more questions on 2 of the remaining dungeons here.
Well, go ahead there, since you got a perfectly timed hint, and talk us through what that Sacred Forest Meadow to Baronade hint could mean. Because you mentioned you need some items for Jabu. Baronade, of course, is the boss of Jabu. So that should mean that something in Sacred Forest Meadow could either lead directly to one of those items or could lead to an item or song that leads you to those items. So what's your initial take when you see that hint?
So yeah, it's just basically since I didn't get the item, I checked all 3 checks in Sacred Forest Meadow. There's 2 songs in there and an item. The item in there was Fair's Wind, so I'm not really entirely concerned about that, because Fair's Wind is never in logic for anything, unless you're playing Master Quest Water Temple, which I'm not going to go into the details of that. But, I'm sorry, not Master Quest Water Temple, Skull Sanity Water Temple is what I wanted to say. Anyway, moving on. So Nocturnal Shadow is what we got in Sacred Forest Meadow. So that could mean something is locked behind Nocturnal Shadow, which of course could mean something's locked in Shadow Temple. There's also the Song of Storms, which is why I pushed Bomb of the Well. And obviously, as you can see, there's a lot of items in there. So it could mean that there's something in Nocturne for Jabu, or any of these items I just got in the well are going to be something to use to get an item for Jabu's belly.
Well, excellent. That's very thorough, and we'll be interested in seeing kind of how you end up going here. It sounds like you've kind of got your immediate plan made up here related to your progression dungeon. So thank you again, Tudos, and good luck with the rest of the seed.
Thank you.
So Tudos is set up pretty well here, I would say. Again, knowing that he is likely going to find, it'll be a little bit here, but we know where Rudo's letter is, and we know that all it was locked behind was the hammer in Zelda's Lullaby, because we got that in the Death Mountain Crater ferry. So, it looks very, very likely that either something he got in Bottom of the Well or his Nocturne of Shadow could lead right to it. And I dare to say that if the boomerang is indeed just sitting in Shadow Temple, then we're gonna have a very, very quick seed on our hands, because it is very likely Tudos is going to get that Rudo's letter when he goes to grab his Din's Fire that he knows he needs. And if it's in Shadow Temple, that'll be it, because we also, in that little conversation, saw where light arrows are.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. We have now Engel out going this way. Unfortunately, has not found that forest hint. So I think we have, I think another great opportunity to just point out that we have two runners here that I think are very similar skill levels, but just due to routing choices or hint stones that they have found, one is just, I think, at a bigger advantage over the others. But it still comes down to, where are those last items? And is that boomerang going to be, just on the path or somewhere else?
Right, and it's also entirely possible that Engel finds that hint here very shortly. I believe we only saw one of those hints, and if he does indeed go out to Spirit Temple after this, he could just find the hint in Desert Colossus. If that's the case, he probably doubles back, he gets his magic, and now it's a matter of, has he executed well enough to make up some time on Tudos? And that's one of the reasons why these races are so exciting, is it never really becomes a concrete lead. There's never a ton of clarity until you do get on go mode, in which case you can pretty reliably determine who's going to win and who's going to lose.
Speaking of routing choices, Tudos is doing his checks a little differently, I believe, here in Water Temple, which unfortunately is going to lose him some time here, knowing where that boss key was.
The funny thing about this too is last week, I think it was, Engel was actually preaching to me about how the way that he ended up doing it in this dungeon was the slow way to do it, and the way that Tudos is doing it here is actually the more efficient way to get through it. But maybe there's an additional qualifier if Water Temple is foolish that you're okay with doing it. But
it just, again, it comes down to where did the seed place our items, and if they had done the same route here, probably would have been very similar times, but because Engel did one check that has happened to have the boss key, he's gonna gain a lot of time here, which will hopefully help, just because he made that, he's made a couple plays here that have led him to areas that haven't had anything necessary.
there is also, I will say, a world where Engel finds his magic in Spirit Temple, in Deep Spirit Temple. And this is Spirit Temple logic is not something that I'm going to get into tonight. It's a very, very convoluted thing. What I will say is Spirit Temple in Randomizer places its keys so that you can never soft lock yourself. So if you're ever in Spirit Temple and you feel like you don't have enough keys to progress, or maybe you use a key in an area that you didn't want to or you didn't mean to and you don't want to save scum them, the game has your back. It will always make sure that you can access enough keys, right? Now, some of the keys later on, or some of the chests later on, assume that you have magic in order to get them. So that means that there are some scenarios where the game expects you to have magic at that point, and there's just another magic higher up in the temple. So if you are in Camp Angle for this one, that's kind of what you're banking on right now because there's not a lot left out here in the desert after he heads out that direction towards Spirit Temple, if that is indeed what he ends up doing.
All right, Tudo's not losing a lot of time here, thankfully, in Water Temple, though.
No, not losing much time at all. And he actually illustrated, I mean, I'm glad Tudos did it this way so we can actually talk a little bit about Water Temple, but you see the jump that Tudos made there using the hover boots. You can actually do it with a well-placed jump without the hover boots, but that's a very, very quick and easy way to access the area that raises the water to its highest level. As long as you can access the top portion, which you always can if you have hover boots and you save quit. But it's just, again, in Randomizer, you will not see most of Water Temple because there's simply enough jumps and enough ways to navigate from just that central area. Makes it go much, much quicker in Randomizer than pretty much any other format.
I am very curious, though, to see here if coming out to the desert into Spirit will help Angle at all, and what Tudo should be finding here coming up soon in Shadow Temple.
Yes, if Tudos does, so there's two pieces of this that still really matter, right? One of them is Tudos needs to, he doesn't know this, of course, but he needs to check the fairy fountain right next to his Din's Fire when he's going and grabbing that. That's his Rudo's letter. And it's not going to be easy for him to get back there either because he doesn't have Bolero of Fire, Engel does. So he needs to grab that. And then for Engel, you were really hoping that he finds some magic high up in Spirit Temple, or as soon as he finishes Spirit Temple, he opts to go to Forest Temple for density's sake, which is also totally possible in this scenario. So still some avenues. Of course, what Tudos finds in Shadow Temple will probably be the ultimate decider of how this seed's going to end. But, you know, stranger things have happened in Randomizer.
Yeah, all Engel fans here really hoping to see this hint stone lets Engel know that he needs to go to Forest Temple.
Yep, important hint here for sure. A path hint, but not the one. Lon Ranch path to Morpha. Well, we found a hook shot there, so
Yeah.
that's a pretty easy call.
And I think it's just unfortunate with Spirit that you know, again, that's just it's a stone dungeon, this seed, so you're not really enticed to go over there since it's not required to reach Ganon. And Forest in general just kind of tends to be slower. So I think a lot of runners very fairly would put that off here, especially not knowing that hint that Tudos got to go there.
Yeah, this is a really, really crummy spot to be to if indeed Engel doesn't find anything he needs here. Because when your last two density options, and when we say density options, we simply mean number of checks that you can get in an area. You're just playing the numbers at that point. One area has 8 checks, one area has 3. With both being equal in terms of logic, you just go for the one with 8. You make the density play, but it always bites when the 2 areas that you have left to go are dungeons that probably don't end up contributing to you finishing the seed later on. And you know, it might not be a bad time here as Engel's kind of working his way through Spirit Temple to kind of pull him in here and get his perspective. GTG, of course, did not pay out at all, and He wasn't super confident or super happy about having to come out to Spirit earlier. He said that was probably what he was going to have to do, but curious as to his thoughts after a painful trip through
Yes. Go ahead and get Angle in here and see how he's feeling and what he's thinking about maybe doing after this.
All right, Angle, it was not a super fun trip through GTG for you. What are you thinking right now? What is the plan?
Well, right now I'm kind of just hoping we can beat Spirit Temple here without having to go to Child Spirit. So yeah, we're gonna just kind of go through here, see what we find. We're only missing a few items. Magic is kind of the big thing I'm looking for right now. That would let us go to Shadow next. And we did also, when I peeked the Valley crate, saw what looked like the light arrows, so I'm gonna have to go back at some point for that.
Well, pretty nice find for you there with the boss key, but I mean, what are your plans here if Spirit Temple doesn't pay out in the way you're hoping for it? Is there an immediate plan that you kind of have here? Any area that's sticking out to you?
At this point, we might just go back to some earlier child checks, like river, domain. Just clean up some things, try and find that magic, because I don't know if you've talked about the logic of coming here yet, but logically, I know I should have had a magic to cross the desert there. So the first magic should be somewhere earlier in the seed.
We talked a little bit about, I actually completely missed that was how you crossed with Lensless Wasteland. We did talk a little bit about Spirit Temple logic, just a very brief thing, because you could write a dissertation on it.
Yeah.
But we talked a little bit about magic as it relates to Spirit Temple, so it's a point well taken.
Yeah, thank you for all that insight, Angle. It's good to hear just why you're making the choices you're making, and it's super valuable to our viewers.
Yeah, if there's anything else the chat wants cleared up, just let me know. And, I said we were go Shadow next, but I guess we're going to Jabu next.
There you go.
Sometimes...
What a find.
That's a good find, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Engel, we'll let you get back too, but thank you for sharing that with us.
Yep.
So, a good find for Angle. What I will say, though, is that this is probably not far off where Tudos is heading next. So we talked a little bit about Shadow Temple and, the logic that could be buried around here, and, where his item could be. But unfortunately for Engel, Spirit Temple is a dungeon that Tudos has to do anyway. And just as Engel said, I'm hoping I have everything I need to do this, we know for a fact that Tudos has everything he needs to do it.
Yes.
And we know that Tudos is probably heading here shortly after finishing Shadow Temple. So a good find for Engel, but the long-term ramifications, not great.
And I can also imagine that on the way to Spirit, Tudos will probably enter GTG as well, just because he will not have that boomerang yet. But looking like that should all come together here. And unfortunately for Engel, Tudos hasn't really lost time to checking unnecessary areas. That just, it's the way Rando is sometimes.
And now I'm especially curious here as to what, if anything, Tudos will find here in Shadow Temple, because the logic puzzle that we kind of pulled together earlier, Tudos talked a little bit about Path to Twin Rova, things of that nature here. So I'm curious what he finds, and if he does find something, we'll be sure to kind of pull him in at the back half of this, and identify maybe what he's thinking, where he wants to head next. I'm certain that, GTG, the desert area, probably has to be high on his list, but depending on what he kind of pulls together in his head, he might end up skipping GTG. And if that's the case, then there's certainly no scenario where Engel pulls this one back. But again, still a lot to be played.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of questions in chat about who's winning, who's in the lead. Really quite a nuanced question here with a randomizer, because as we said, it does depend on where, we now are in a position where we as the viewers kind of know where all the required items are. But that doesn't mean that they will make those routing decisions. They might tend to go other places. So just looking from the outside in, as we said, it does look like Tudos may have an advantage here. It would make sense for Tudos to route where we know the items are, but that might not be the case. You never know. Tudos might decide to rush to Ice Cavern instead. So we'll have to see. So as much as I want to say Tudos has the advantage here, you never know with randomizer.
Just never know.
It won't be until we see one of our runners here get into what we call go mode that, we might have a better idea.
Yeah, and I remember at the end of Tudos' seed, last time we had a good bit of fun talking about go modes and every other mode that can end in O. I saw slow mode, big bro mode, dope mode, do mode, which was different than dope mode. So we'll have a little fun with that as we get there too. So a couple cool tricks actually on your screen right now. Tudos is not intentionally getting hit by these for any reason. What he's trying to do is he's trying to time his backflip at just the right time to phase through and end up on top of the spikes. It's a quick way to get to the top. And then on the other side, you saw Engel using his hook shot. If you fire the hook shot at this phase of the Twin Roba fight, you can actually stall whichever of the sisters is not currently firing the spell. So what that means is you actually have a little bit of control of where the two witches are flying about and what they're doing, which can go a long way in taking some of the RNG out of this fight. And you're going to see here he's going to jump over here as well, pull out his shield. He had stored a jump slash earlier, so he's going to get a really easy chance to jump in here and clean up there for the clean one cycle. The Bigoron sword certainly makes it easier, but a well-executed Twin Roba fight there from Engel. And Tudos did as well eventually hit his backflip to get through the spike rim. So at the point here in the scene that Engel is at, he can pretty reliably assume that this boomerang that he got is not going to lead to his magic. As he said earlier, he needed magic even to just get out to Requiem of Spirit, or sorry, not Requiem of Spirit, the Desert Colossus and the Spirit Temple, rather, excuse me. So you can pretty reliably assume that he's not going to find a magic here inside of his inside of Jabu's belly. But as he said earlier, there are some early child checks here that he can do. And for all he knows, there might be magic inside one of these checks. So Engel probably not too terribly worried about chasing after this Jabu. He knows that he needs to beat it anyway. There's some checks that he could get regardless of the boomerang. So you're gonna see him kind of set the pace here inside of the big fish as Tudos approaches the back half of Shadow Temple. Pretty solid run through it as well. Not as clean as Shadow Temple, but you know, Shadow Temple, there are a lot of ways that this temple can go very, very poorly if you don't have the right equipment, or you know, if you fall off the boat that you're gonna see up here. But oftentimes when you're here at the back of the temple, you're just trying to go slow and not go down, because boy oh boy, it can take some time to get back this deep.
And I may have missed this earlier. Did Tudos get that Rudo's letter in the DMC fairy fountain?
He did.
Okay.
He did indeed get his Rudo's letter. So a big, big find for him here. Again, now that we know where Boomerang is and we know it's in a progression dungeon, really it's just going to be a matter of how quickly he does it. If he skips GTG, if he goes straight out to Spirit Temple for that completion, which he might yet do, but you know, at this point he's treading ground that Engel will have tread, so it's going to be very difficult for Engel to get back time, regardless of how this last portion of the seed spins out.
Yeah, and another thing too is now, so once Tudos comes into Jabu Jabu, he should be in go mode. While Engel here is still not. So he's gonna be probably more thorough on the checks while he's going through Jabu Jabu, while Tudo should have the luxury to just speed on through and not check anything additionally.
And that does definitely matter here in Jabu, because there are two rooms that you have to go out of your way to enter that have some checks in them that Tudos is not gonna have to. I mean, it's not even just that he's gonna make a chest appear and not have to check it. He's just not even gonna have to go to any of the rooms that those are in. So, all the better. A go mode Jabu is the best type of Jabu. So, Tudos, I think, has a blue potion and is just opting to live dangerously at this point. So, good on him. Braver soul than I. Not push the block, so let's be careful here. Certainly he'll drink it before he fights Bongo, right? Like, you know, we've been talking about these scenarios where Engel can get back some time. I hadn't quite calculated Tudos dying to Bongo in that little chart, but I mean, how long does it take to get back down there if you don't push the block? That's gotta be at least, what, like 3 or 4 minutes?
Yeah, it's quite a, you know, you have to, not only do you have to go on the boat again, regardless or not if you push the block, but, you know, you have to go through all those invisible platforms moving around and everything. So he does have Furor's Wind, so that could be something he could utilize too. Oh, but he drank. All right, there we go. All right.
Hey, I have 100%, as I'm flipping through my menus very quickly and trying to piece together logic, totally forgotten that I had a red or blue potion in my pocket. Would have been a very Tudosian move to forget that as well, but good on him for keeping it together and remembering that very useful drink.
All right, we'll probably grab Tudos coming up at the end of this fight here and kind of examine where maybe he's going and get ready for our second wellness break of the night.
I like it. Also, with the chat saying toss a coin to your tracker, I have to say toss a coin to your tracker, Gerudo Valley of Plenty. Like, you just have to make that pun there. The whole Witcher pun combining with Ocarina of Time. It's about as dry as it gets, but had to make it. I was not going to be able to sleep tonight if I didn't.
All right, let's get Tudos in here and ask what he's planning to do after that pretty uneventful Shadow Temple.
All right, Tudos. A very well executed bongo fight. We were wondering if you were going to remember that you had that blue potion, so thank you for remembering. But what's the plan from here on out now that you got through a pretty uneventful Shadow Temple?
Yeah, I definitely want to remember the blue potion because one of Bongo's attacks does 2 hearts of damage, and that would have been very close to some not very good things. But anyway, I now know where all the songs are. And I know the Requiem of Spirit is in its normal location out in the desert. So I'm going to be heading there next. I have Epona's long shot to cross the desert and go straight there. I'm probably not going to do Gerudo's Training Grounds. There's a lot of checks in there, but I'm only looking for one. Well, I'm looking for 2 items at the moment. One of them being the light arrows, the other one being the boomerang. I definitely want to keep pushing those path of... What was it? I still have some paths I need to check for the Twin Rova hints, so that's why I want to push Spirit Temple first.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense routing wise here.
Yeah, so we're gonna go to Spirit Temple. We should be able to beat that because we know we are getting Requiem of Spirit. And if I still have Boomerang after that, then we'll start checking into some other places that need to possibly fulfill that Sacred Forest Meadow hint that we got. Because with the Nocturnal Shadow, there wasn't anything in there that I got. So it's more than likely that Storm Scent that I got, where I got all the stuff in the bottom of the well, is gonna lead me to the Boomerang.
Very thorough explanation here. Thank you again for making it easy for our audience to understand why, where, and how you're going to be working through the next few minutes. And speaking of the next few minutes, Nukes, I know you mentioned that we were going to take another wellness break here shortly. Do we want to do that now, or? Yeah,
I'm going to go ahead. We'll grab Engel into the room as well. Make sure both of our runners can get into a spot where they are good to pause. And go ahead and grab Engel.
I am good to pause whenever.
All right, Engel, I was just telling Tudos we are getting ready for our second wellness break here. Are you in a spot where I could count down to pause? Engel, or Tudos says he is.
Yeah, I could be ready to pause here.
All right. I will go ahead and we'll pause in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and pause. All right, chat. We are going to take a quick little wellness break here. So this is a great time if you need to get up and maybe use the washroom, grab a snack, fill up your drink. Now is a great opportunity to. And in a few minutes, we'll be back to finish off our race. Stay tuned. Hey, all you cool cats and gamers. Welcome back to episode 3 of Ocarina Improv, the GDQ Hotfix show special that dives in depth into Zelda Ocarina of Time Randomizer, or ZOOTR for short. I'm your host, Nuclear Reaction, and tonight myself and 9 whole grains are breaking down an Ocarina of Time Randomizer race between Tudos and Engel. Before we finish our race, though, I do have a quick few announcements. If you're watching on YouTube, go to twitch.tv/gamesdonequick if you're interested in looking at our live content, starting weeknights at 7 p.m. Eastern and weekends at 1 p.m. Eastern. Also, your subs and bits help support weekly hotfix content. Please consider supporting our daily content by subscribing or cheering. Also, if you at home have any ideas for your own shows or one-off events, feel free to go to gamesdonequick.com/hotfix to submit your ideas. All right, we are nearing the end of our race here. Before we kind of get back into a recap of what's been going on, I just want to check with our runners to make sure they're ready for a countdown, and we will explain to chat where we are.
I'm good. I don't know, though. I think it's just been spoiled that Dos is about to win. He said we're almost done. Uh-oh.
Well, we're in the final, the final third of, we took our last wellness break is what I mean by that. Who knows where we're at.
Yeah, sorry, Tudos. Angle paused right in the middle of stabbing Ganon, so just get ready to come right back here.
It's been quite a thrilling race, hasn't it been, Nine?
I've seen some stuff this seed that I've never seen before, so there we go.
All right, let's Will Tudos find his way out of Link's house?
No, I was muted the whole time. I hit my mute button again. Sorry, stream.
All right, well, to recap,
right.
Tudos made a lot of really funny jokes.
Yep, I'm never saying them again. Too late.
All right.
Perfect. That means we can
All
count
right.
down and
Now
start.
that we got that exclusive content on the back end here, let's go ahead and count down, and we can mute Tudos again. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Tudos.
Oh
what a
gosh.
character.
All right, for those of you who might be just joining us, we are kind of nearing the end of this race, as we mentioned. Before we went on our break, Tudos kind of highlighted what his next stops here are. It's going to be going out to Spirit Temple, which is a required medallion. Tudos is only looking for 2 more items here. One of them being the boomerang that us as the audience know is out in the Spirit Temple. So he'll be heading out there and should be grabbing that out there. The other item is light arrows, which is in GTG, right? I'm remembering that correctly?
So it's in Gerudo Valley.
Oh, it's in Gerudo
actually.
Valley.
Yeah, it's on the crate.
Oh, okay.
So
All right. Yeah, you're right. But he will get a hint from Ganondorf. Basically, how Ocarina of Time Randomizer works is if you're able to access Ganondorf, but you haven't found your light arrows yet, Ganondorf will be, just typical villain self and let you know exactly where the thing is to beat him in a fantastic monologue. So.
In respect to the Ganon, he didn't know that Link had time traveling powers where he could save scum, which is a little bit ironic given, the whole point of the game is time travel, but he just doesn't know what he told you. So it does look like Tudos is going to quickly enter Gerudo Training Grounds to probably set his Furore's Wind, which is almost always a good call. This area, despite the fact that you can access it from Spirit Temple and also access it from Hyrule Field, it can be pretty time consuming to get back here depending on where you're coming from. And so setting your Furore's Wind in here will mean that anytime you enter any dungeon, you can always warp right back to that spot there. So if Ganon does tell him Gerudo Training Grounds, he'll pop right back and be right there. But as we know, it's in Gerudo Valley, so that is now an even better place for Furore's Wind, because he'll be able to place his Furore's Wind, hop right out to Gerudo Valley, and immediately grab his light arrows if he does not grab them ahead of time. So a very fundamental play there by Tudos, but it's going to pay off big in the long run.
Yeah, and thankfully, just because there is no items in GTG, Tudos isn't making the play. Like he's not gonna be wasting his time in GTG. He doesn't know that there's no items in there, but we as the viewers know that, so we know that's gonna pay off for him in the long run.
Exactly. And he did, lay out again earlier before we went to break why specifically he feels that way. And it's because his Baronade hint he got, he's surmised was related to Bottom of the Well and what he found in Bottom of the Well, because we didn't find anything in Shadow Temple. So in Bottom of the Well, we found 2 strengths, we found another hook shot, so he has all the reason in the world to believe that this is going to be where his boomerang is. So, it makes sense from a logical perspective, and it also is good progression. So. Meanwhile, poor Engel, still trying to find magic,
Yes.
still has not found the hint, and instead gets slapped in the face with the ice arrows, which this is not MMR. They are functionally useless in this game outside of a little bit of help with the bongo fight. But as you saw from Tudos's fight, when you have the Bigoron sword, you don't need a whole lot of help in that fight.
Unfortunately, for those of you who haven't been watching this whole seed, early on, Tudos got a hint that Forest Temple was path to Bongo Bongo, which was a hint to their magic location. And Engel has not been able to find that hint stone. It hasn't popped up for Engel, so he's just at a disadvantage there, not having that information to dip into Forest Temple, which is kind of inherently a slow dungeon and not a required dungeon to get to Ganondorf. So he's for good reason has been putting off Forest Temple, but unfortunately hurting him here in the race.
Yeah, and it's I think a great example too for people maybe unfamiliar with this format of how even just that quick divergence at the start where Tudos very intentionally said, and we caught it on film, we brought him in here to the room, everybody, told you that one of the reasons he was being so thorough as a child, whereas Engel was rushing adult, is that he wanted to go for the hints. And, this is, when we say hints are powerful, this is why. I mean, Engel has, to his knowledge, not done anything wrong with the information he has. He's executed well, he's moved around, he's cleared what he's needed to, and he's been very thorough. And the checks that he put off by rushing adult, he was able to come back and get even faster than he would have been able to get as a child. But again, the one piece that he did miss was that hint. And that hint is really the difference between the two of them, and it's created a huge gap. Even though at the time, we had no reason to think it would, but this is how the cookie crumbles sometimes in random.
Which I think does highlight here, we've talked about how important these hint stones can be and how powerful they can be in terms of routing, which tonight is a great example of that.
Yeah, exactly. And, make no mistake, if and when Engel finds that hint, it's not even a question he'll be going to Forest Temple. And if he had that hint, he would have gone there ages ago. And, the thing is, if, let's say, this hint happens to be the one that has it, there's a chance that he makes this, a good sport here at the end and a good show. Unfortunately, as we know, the GTG that Tudos skipped will mean that even if Engel immediately goes on the right path, that's still probably about a little over 10 minutes he's given to Tudos. If you also factor in the ice cavern that Tudos has not gone to, but yeah, it's kind of rough to sit back and kind of see the boulder rolling down at you, which we can see having both perspectives, but still going to be a bit of a grind here for Engel to finish this one out.
I believe not. Engel might be actually finally getting that hint stone here soon. There we go.
There it is.
There it is.
And immediately, should we pull him in?
Yes.
Yeah, this is definitely interviewing somebody right after the winning shot was made against them. He's not going to be happy here, but we need to get the candid reaction. True journalism,
Yes.
everybody.
All right, they'll move Engel in here.
So Engel,
Yeah.
probably not the hint you wanted to see.
It's Certainly not the hint I wanted to see.
But go ahead and when you see that hint, what is your immediate thought as the puzzle pieces kind of come together here for you as you work through this portion of the seed?
Immediate thought is I've lost, but aside from that, it's, Path to Bongo. The only thing I'm missing is a magic to get into Shadow, so thinking there's probably just a magic meter somewhere in Forest Temple. So we just gonna run through this and hope to find it.
And your bit earlier, you also found the Lens of Truth in Zora's domain. So you mentioned earlier here, but just for anyone who might not have been here, and since you're going through Forest Temple, and I know you've got some time on your hands, why was the magic, the potential magic location and the location of the Lens of Truth, what significance does that have for, say, a Spirit Temple play or something along those lines?
Right, so with all of the other songs I acquired throughout the seed, I had all but two, right? I knew from a hint stone that beating all of the stone dungeons would get me Sun Song, and then Process of Elimination, Requiem of Spirit would be out in the desert in front of Spirit Temple. So with that, that the seed logically wants you to go out through the desert and run that whole path to get Requiem of Spirit. And in order to do that, you're normally required to have magic and the Lens of Truth to be able to, see that ghost that kind of guides you through the last half. And therefore, I knew neither of those items would show up in Spirit Temple for me. Perhaps there could have been the second magic. There are two in the game. The second one could have been in there. But the first one that I'm logically supposed to find would be somewhere before that.
Your ability to take these complex puzzle pieces and fit them together so succinctly never ceases to amaze me, man.
I'm trying. I'm wishing I wasn't in Forest Temple here for you all, but
Forest Temple is, it's nice in its own way.
it's nice and comfy, right?
I'd certainly think so, but thank you again, Engel, for popping in here, kind of talking through that. Best of luck in your search for your magic and for the rest of the seed.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. I know we have had some talks. There is discussion going on here in chat right now about who is in the lead.
Can we say it?
I definitely want to say here that Tudos definitely has that advantage now. I think it's pretty solidified. Unfortunately, Engel visited more locations, more checks that were unnecessary. And did not have got that hint way too late for the magic, but I want to say there, despite all that, it still is not completely, super far apart at the end of this.
Yeah, that's well said too, because where the fact that magic is deeper here in Forest Temple is really kind of the kicker at the end of this whole puzzle, because remember that Tudos still does have to go beat Twinrova, which is typically a handful of minutes in and of itself, and he also needs to go beat Jabu, which is, not the longest dungeon, but you do still have to get all the way out there, trek all the way through, come back, slam the sword again, become an adult. Meanwhile, Engel's going to just be able to stay adult Link here. He has, well, at least he knows where the light arrows are. They'll both have to go out for the light arrows, but, it's going to be reasonably, within similar tiers of finish times if this was a more open and broad race between the two of them. But again, the fact that Engel's going to have to go down here, he's not going to get his magic before Tudos is finished up with the Twin Rova fight. And then the real kicker at the end here is that even though Tudos is going to have to age change twice, he's going to be able to immediately warp and grab his light arrows, whereas I believe Engel's going to have to run out there or ride out there on Epona, and that's going to be time that's going to go back for Engel. Now, he should presumably be able to set his furrours inside of Ganon's tower and get a little time back that way, but provided that Tudos keeps it clean here, he's certainly pacing ahead at this point.
Yeah. So although, yeah, I think it is fair to not completely call the race again. It's still rando, and there's still, you know, different factors working against our runners here, as Nine did a great job explaining. But I do want to say at this point, I think Tudos does have the advantage, but that doesn't mean that Engel's fate is sealed here. We also don't know, there is also the possibility, Nine, that while going up to see Ganon, Tudos could just opt to put his Furrows Wind up there.
You know, that's fair. Yeah, give back some of that time. That is entirely possible. So one trick that I want to highlight here that Engel did, Forest Temple is typically thought of as a very linear dungeon, and in the context of Randomizer it is, but this is one little way that you can kind of tackle it out of order. He used a very precise jump with the hover boots, and then called for Pierre with the Scarecrow song, long shot it over to it, and that can actually get you here to the back of Forest Temple very early on. So this typically has that check that he just passed by typically has an item in it, because most of the keys are gone at this point in the temple. But because you do have to beat all 4 of the Pose sisters to get through the dungeon, even though you can get here to the back, it doesn't actually get you much closer to finishing the temple. So this was purely kind of almost a Hail Mary in the back of the end zone play, hoping that maybe this was his item. And as we know, it wasn't. It's unfortunately smack dab in the middle, but that's why one of the rare circumstances you'll see that play done.
Yeah, and that's again just one of those, you know, the way he routed here could have potentially helped him had that item been placed there. And it's just one of the things that at the end of the day, that's how Ocarina of Time Randomizer races kind of work, is sometimes you just luck out and go to the right check at the right time, and sometimes you don't.
And I think what also really probably stings in Engel's case is that the hint that he didn't grab is not a particularly out of the way hint either. That hint in outside of Hyrule Castle, the only reason that you don't grab that oftentimes is just because you know that area is barren. And I believe that Engel had that hint already, and that was part of the reason why he opted not to go out there. Because if there's no check there, all you're really saying is, well, it's just 2 hints. And, you know, I don't want to assume that was his exact thought process, but certainly if all there are hints and no checks and you have all these items, it becomes a lot easier to put that off. Meanwhile, Tudos worked that into his early route and was rewarded greatly for it. So, Tudos finishing off Spirit Temple here. As we know, he's now going to head right back to become a child, head up to Jabu Jabu, beat that dungeon, and then we'll see what shenanigans there may end up being with where he sets his Furrows Wind and goes for the light arrows, but he's certainly out of Spirit Temple, and Jabu typically does go faster than Shadow Temple, even with a runner as skilled as Engel.
as we mentioned, Tudos now just has to go complete Jabu Jabu here, which should be a rather quick dungeon, since he will not have to go into additional rooms and check any additional items. Meanwhile, unfortunately, Angle has, again, just a disadvantage here once he gets magic, that Shadow Temple is just inherently one of the longer dungeons that he'll have to go through for his last dungeon. Also, chat, I do want to give you the opportunity here. If you have any questions about, Ocarina Time Randomizer, as our runners are finishing up and going over areas that we've seen, let us know. We're happy to answer questions. I will, again, place those links in chat. There's a link to how to get started with your own Ocarina Time Randomizer if you'd like to get into the scene here. Additionally, there's links to both of our runners channels, as well as myself and Nine Whole Grains channels. All four of us would also be happy to help answer questions on our own streams about Ocarina Time Randomizer.
Yeah, it's a very open and welcoming community, and I think the real magic here too is that sometimes the randomizer just wins, and there's a real camaraderie in knowing that we are all in this together against the great evil that is the final check in the seed, having the one item that you need. And we've all been there, and everyone has a journey, and every seed is its own journey as you go through it as well. And every seed has its own story to tell as well. And, even a seed that went as smoothly as this one for Tudos, who, for Tudos, this has been about as straightforward a seed as you'll see at this level. And for Angle, it's been an entire struggle, and it was because of one hint. That's the difference between these two at this point. So, again, it's a welcoming community. Please feel free to hop in any stream when anyone is there. Worst case scenario, you'll get to learn something from watching their gameplay.
All right, here is a question from chat. What is the best advice from pros to start? Well, you have found yourself in a great place to get started on learning. We kind of mentioned this earlier, just watching runners who have done a lot of these and asking questions can definitely help you learn the best, so you can learn kind of why they route things a certain way. I've also have mentioned in the past, using a map tracker is a great way to start as well. That's going to really highlight to you, as you gather items, which areas are more dense with more checks, and help you figure out your checks and navigate Hyrule a little bit better. And, everyone starts somewhere. Nine and I have both noted how both of our first Ocarina of Time seeds took about 13 hours to complete. We're now, you're more like a 2.5 to 3.5 hour ordeal. So definitely just getting started.
And we should that's a great question. We should put a pin in that and ask that to Tudos and Angle after this seed is done too, because if you're gonna ask about the pros and how that's done, Angle is in the thick of the season 5 tournaments here. I know he's currently in the upper half of a losers bracket, so he's making a big run up against some of the best, and Tudos is currently in a leading position in Challenge Cup, so two very strong runners who played all the time. I'm sure they'll have great insight, but you actually kind of said it all there, at least from what I was going to say here. The resources out there are great. Please feel free to play with settings to make certain aspects of learning the game easier. My first few seeds, I always started with the Kokiri sword. One, so that I could always get into the Deku tree really quickly, so I would have those easy checks, and also because I didn't feel comfortable playing as Child Link with only sticks and, you know, maybe a hook shot or a slingshot if I got lucky. So, you know, play with those as well, and just, you know, play as many seeds as you'd like, you know, learn different checks, watch different runners. Don't worry about any of the tricks. They will come with time. You can learn them. The most time-consuming part of any of this with Randomizer is just learning where the checks are and what items get you access to which checks. So that would be my advice. And you know, it all outside of that, it just comes with time. Lots of seeds, lots of checks to memorize, and it will come as you play more.
Another great reminder that we forgot to touch on, but chat's making sure we remember to mention it. Spoiler logs. When you make these, you can also get a spoiler log that will cover where everything was in the seed and what the logic was and kind of the logical path was, and you can really dive into that. Whether or not maybe you couldn't finish, you couldn't find your last item. You thought you checked everywhere. That's going to give you that information of what you missed. Additionally, you could also look back to it at the end and see what did the game want me to do, and kind of examine that as well. Just definitely essential tool when you're starting off there.
Very essential, and on those same lines too, I'll just kind of add from like a philosophical standpoint. Do not worry about your time. for a while. Yes. Is kind of the best thing I say. I put a timer on my first seed just for fun's sake and so that we could have this conversation down the road. But I didn't time my next 6 or 7 seeds, and I was probably, I mean, I had to have been somewhere in the realm of 12 or 13 completed seeds before I finally felt comfortable racing with people. And that was just because, you know, I didn't want that pressure. There was no need for it. I was still learning and I wanted to have a little fun. So, you know, if your goal is to enter some of these races, that's awesome. There's almost always a race going on, and I do mean almost always. It's around the clock, different time zones. There's always a race happening somewhere. But feel free to, you know, take it easy and get there at your own pace, because this game isn't going anywhere. It's been how many years since this game came out? It'll be here. It'll be here whenever you're ready. Don't worry.
And another great question is, how familiar do you have to be with the vanilla game? I don't think I could remember half of these checks. Again, map tracker, I really, really, really urge anyone starting to run a randomizer of any sort, if a map tracker is available, which there is one for Ocarina of Time Randomizer, please utilize that tool. That is going to help you see all of your available checks and help you learn those checks, because you know, while I do recommend having maybe played the vanilla game at some point so you're not coming into the game completely unfamiliar, you know, that's going to be your key to making sure you get all of your checks in the game, and just using that for until you feel comfortable without using that. And yeah, that there was a great point there that, you know, obviously we're showcasing in here a lot of tricks, but you know, definitely when we started off, we didn't know any of these tricks, and we just kind of learned them as time went on. There's a lot of great resources on here. Again, if you haven't watched our other Ocarina Improv episodes, where we had just one runner on, we really broke down a lot of those tricks as well. So feel free to use those as a resource as well. Yeah.
And I'll add too, just for the fun of this, that I have met 3 different people who started running OOT Rando without ever having played the vanilla game. So I can answer your question with the resounding no, you don't have to. Absolutely not.
Yeah, as I said, I think it will help you probably in the beginning, just because you'll, you know, have that familiarity, but definitely not necessary. You could hop right into this. I think a lot of, too, again, is just watching others play through Ocarina of Time Randomizer also will help with that familiarity as well. And finding someone who will explain to you why they are doing the things they're doing and why they're routing the seed the way they are can help a lot too.
All right, so we now can finally talk about the final portion of every seed played under these settings, and that is Tudos has gathered all 6 of the medallions that have been randomized between the different dungeon rewards. His reward, the nice rainbow bridge, so beautiful. He's going to be able to walk here across and climb up Ganon's tower. One thing that we haven't really mentioned up to this point, but you'll clearly see here is under these settings, the trials are off. So Tudos is not going to have to complete all of the trials in order to get the big energy barrier to disappear. Now, these can still have checks in them, which is an important note in certain circumstances. The most important of them being the circumstance Tudos is in now. For all Tudos knows, his light arrows could be here inside of this tower, and there are a few checks that Tudos could grab on the way up the tower. Now, as we know, that's not going to be where they are. We've seen they're in Gerudo Valley, and Tudos will learn about that very shortly. But there are still some chests in here that can be opened. Otherwise, a brief gauntlet, a few fights here to get up to the top. Takes down the Lizalfos without too much trouble. A couple Stalfos here, and then 2 Iron Knuckles we affectionately call Salt and Pepper that he'll have to get through, and then he will finally get to chat with Ganondorf. So he'll be setting the pace at this point. It'll be kind of interesting to note here. Engel's actually gonna get out of here pretty close to when Tudos is picking up his light arrows. So if there was a circumstance in which Engel had his light arrows already, this would have actually been a very, very close finish. And again, Tudos could still take an unfortunate couple of deaths to Ganondorf. You never want to say it's over, of course, but this is just again to illustrate how even after all of these things have gone wrong for Engel, he's played so efficiently. He hasn't wasted a lot of time outside of a couple extra areas that he went to. And it's going to be reasonably close here. So.
All right, Tudos was almost going to set that for Auras there. I wonder if he forgot that he had already set it in GTG. But Tudos gonna get the hint here. And yeah, I saw a question about how do we know where light arrows is, but neither runner seems to. Earlier on, Engel saw light arrows in Gerudo Valley, but wasn't able to grab them. Well, Tudos here did not see them, so is grabbing the check here, or grabbing the information from Ganondorf.
And back Tudos goes. A very wisely set Aurora's win. So you notice that Tudos save quit there, set him right back out to the start. And it's good to know that, because let's say that it was in Ganon's castle, he could have just immediately walked over and grabbed it from right there. But by saving, he gets right to the front, and he's A-okay to grab that. So he's going to very briefly do these 2 checks here. He's going to pull out his hammer. This one we know is not it. Now, the nice thing, and actually kind of the interesting thing here, is Tudos is going to be able to use a bomb chew throw here, actually, to hit this chest with a bomb chew and open it up. But the interesting thing is, I don't know if Tudos knows the jump to get down here. he can long shot to the box. However, of course, the box is exploded, so he's gonna go ahead and save quit here so that he can long shot to it later.
Which I think is a fair move on his part there.
Yep, if you don't know the jump, you can always long shot to it. But it is kind of funny to think if for some reason we were in this scenario, but we didn't need the long shot and Tudos didn't have the long shot, he would actually have to go back child and use the cuckoo to fly over to grab that check. And that would be a chance for Engel to really make back a lot of time, because Engel does know that jump. And more than anything, he also knows that it's there and he's already adult. So he could have potentially gotten back a lot of time. But as things stand here, Tudos is going to be able to use his hover boots, get right down onto that little platform, long shot across, get his lights, and be on his way. So kind of a sigh of relief, I'm sure, once he realized, oh, wait, I can do it like this too.
Right, Tudos officially in go mode. Just gotta make his way back up to Ganondorf. Engel just now finishing that last required dungeon. Has to grab the light arrows, so definitely gonna be close here. Tudos, unless Tudos takes some unfortunate deaths, Tudos should have the win coming up here.
Well, he better remember to grab some magic.
Yes, yes, and that as well.
That's the first step here. The light arrows, for those of you who don't know, do require magic to fire, and if Tudos doesn't hit the one cycle, I'm not sure he has enough magic for more than one light arrow. So he could always jump down and grab it in the middle of the fight, but it takes time. We're trying to save some frames here. We don't want that, and you can see here just how close Engel is. Engel is going to end up grabbing his light arrows here. I mean, within a handful of minutes from Tudos grabbing his. So, again, just all the other things that Engel added as late as he got that hint, and it still being this close, just does show again the quality of runner that Engel is, and really the quality of both of the runners. Tudos with the better route by being more thorough early on. He gave up some time to get that hint, and his gamble paid off. The time that Engel saved by not doing that early on is just about how far he is behind. So amazing how it all fits together in the end.
And although unfortunately Tudos does have to run up the tower twice here, Engel still has to fight the enemies. So that will slow down his climb coming up here as well. Yeah, now as we're wrapping up, I do want to say that we will be having both our runners in the call here to just ask some questions about the seed and about the race. So I want to give you an opportunity to, ask some questions that maybe you want to hear the runners answer, or think of some questions. Now's a great time, and let us know in chat if you have anything that you want to hear from the runners once they finish.
Couple of open books these runners are, so have at it, friends. And they're so close together that honestly, I mean it's ultimately up to you, Nukes, and the rest of production. Do you think we'll get to see both of them finish, given how close they are?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we'll definitely let Engel go ahead and finish as well up here. Assuming, I'm going to assume Tudos wins here, but we will let both of our runners, let them both kill Ganon here. We definitely have time for that.
Yep, and it's always good. There are some circumstances, and I've commentated a number of races where the winner about an hour out, and there's just no circumstance in which time comes up. They get, they check everything except for the one spot they need to check, and the other person picks the perfect route. And You know, it's always unfortunate, and you always hope for a seed where you can't really tell who's going to win, but with how much they diverge, it's still cool to know that the finishing times are going to be, again, similar tiers with each other. If this was an open qualifying race, these two might finish right next to each other in qualifying times. So that's just, again, how wild this game can be at times.
I also, again, have put those links in chat. If you're interested in trying out Ocarina of Time Randomizer for yourself, there's a great resource in that Zelda Speedruns link, as well as the Twitch channels for both of our runners and both myself and 9 Whole Grains. If you are interested in checking out our streams and chatting to us more about Ocarina of Time Randomizer.
Here we are at the end, eyes on Tudos' screen. He finishes the first phase of Ganon. Now just some more stored crouch stabs here for a little extra damage. Back to one more, we should get our cutscene here. There it is, right as Engel is entering the Ganondorf fight. So a great show by both of our runners. GG's ready in the chat. Only one more button to be pushed.
Time ends on this final slash that Tudos is about to make on Ganon. That's GG.
GG.
Definitely a very close race here. I'm very glad that we didn't end up in a situation where one of our runners just was lost trying to find the last item. That unfortunately does happen.
It does indeed, and Engel with a very clean Ganondorf fight as well as finishing this strong. And I mean, this is the tension here. If Tudos hasn't hopped in Twitch chat yet to know, but I like that we're letting this go the distance, and we're just gonna tell him afterwards. You know, Tudos is the runner who taught me Ocarina of Time Randomizer, and I will tell you the best piece of advice he ever gave me. He probably doesn't even mind giving this to me because he was still learning the game at the time, but his best advice was, you always let the Ocarina of Time credits roll all the way through. And that was just his policy as a professional, and I love it. What a game. What a game.
All right, phase 1 down of Ganon. Engel gonna go grab that Master Sword. Oh, this is probably the most stressful part of any race because you never know, is the other racer gonna snipe you here and just get the Ganon slash in right before you? Which honestly, I feel like happens way more than you would think.
I have lost out on top 10s in weeklies by half a second, if that.
All right, then that's
But GG's
GG
to
for
Engel.
Engel. Huge round of applause for both of our runners here. Absolutely a fantastic showcase. And I hope y'all learned a lot. We're going to go ahead and bring our runners in, though, to the room with us and ask them any questions. So again, if you have any other questions, I did get some questions from chat, but if you have any others, feel free to ask and we'll talk with our runners. All right.
And welcome both runners.
GG to both of you. Super close race. Tudos did finish here with a 2:27.29 in first. Engel coming very close behind with a 2:30.32.
Oh, dang.
Oh, dang indeed. So the story of this race, and knowing Engel, you've probably kind of pieced it together as time was going along here. Tudos found the hint about Forest Temple being Path of Bongo Bongo very early on when doing the more thorough child routing that he did at the start where he chased some hints. Engel went immediate adult. As you both know, many of the items came after that, but Tudos got that magic from Forest Temple very, very early on, and the back half of the seed kind of pulled it together as time went along. One other important note, Tudos very correctly interpreted the hint as to where the boomerang could be in Spirit Temple, and so he also skipped GTG and did not go to Ice Cavern either. So he lost some time in the early part of the seed as a result of being a little bit more thorough. He scummed some bomb shoes before he got that bomb bag on Anshu. So he almost gave back enough time for Engel's extra dungeon work to catch back up, as you can tell with the 3 minutes. But alas, in the end, the hint made the difference.
I'm a big fan of getting hints early, and I know Engel usually likes to age changes earlier than I do, so I kind of use that to my advantage here.
Yeah, I think we definitely...
These two are teammates.
We definitely noted that, again, we've talked about this in our other Ocarina Improv episodes, just how powerful those hint stones can be, especially in a race setting with routing, and definitely got to see that tonight, just because Tudos got that forest hint much sooner than Engel did, unfortunately. But I think you both made very great plays, with given the information that you had, and it just goes to show that, anything can kind of happen with Ocarina of Time Randomizer.
I do have a question for Engel, though.
Morning.
Were you actually in Forest Temple when at that first break where we were talking about Forest Temple? Because I was actually in Forest Temple.
No, you know I hate Stone Forest.
Yeah, basically I became adult, climbed up, I did CAC into Dodongos, up to DMC into Forest, basically. So I was in there pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, the story of the seed was that hint for Path to Bongo Bongo was just in a really bad spot for me. It was kind of in an out-of-the-way area that I just glossed over in the early part of the seed, and then, my hunt for magic through some of the other areas just took too much time.
I did have and I think this will be interesting to touch on, a question from chat about, for Engel, because you skipped that hint stone, do you think you'll be checking that hint stone more often in future seeds? Is that going to impact your routing at all in the future? Or was this just kind of like an unfortunate situation?
No, that was just unfortunate. I'll check that if I'm going to get the Castle Fairy check, but otherwise I'm not getting it. So in this seed where I just got so many items out of the well, it just pushed me to not even go over there, because I got like 5 items out of the well, and I'm like, well, I can beat Water Temple and Spirit Temple, and I need like 1 other item for the other 2. So
it kind of reminds me of, you often hear if you're around the ZOOTR community a lot, you know, oh, if you don't check chickens, gotta check chickens. Chickens always have something, but you know, you're typically not going to route in something that might be out of the way, just because a previous seed had one important thing there. So it's just the nature of randomizer. I did have another question from chat. Out of all the games to speedrun, what made you both choose Ocarina Randomizer to learn and master?
I guess I'll go first for that one. Ocarina of Time is one of my favorite N64 games. It's up there with DK64. But I watched a streamer called I Ate Your Pie, and he was actually the one I first started watching, but I never actually started playing this myself until like over a year after I knew this existed. I guess for me, like when I first saw this, I thought it seemed kind of daunting to start and play it first, even though I knew the game very well. And that's kind of why I started up this whole show with Nukes 9 and Angle, because I thought it would be nice to make something for like kind of like beginner style commentary, and like have shows where you kind of break down how you do specific areas, just to kind of get in the whole thing. And that's kind of the whole reason behind doing this show, and like one of the reasons why I love playing Ocarina Randomizer, because once you get into it, it's just so cool, because I can play my favorite game over and over again without being bored.
Yeah.
What a great last sentence. I can play my favorite game over and over again without getting bored. I mean,
Well,
what
I
more do you
mean,
need?
I
Drop
guess-
the mic.
I guess more specifically, like this is like a single player only game. That's the same time every time if you play vanilla. But if you play randomizer, you're playing the same game, but it's a different set of, I guess, goals that you will have to play through every time, right? It's a roguelike basically, you know?
Yeah, I definitely heavily agree with that. It just breathes new life into the game every time you play it. Makes it a new puzzle every time, which I agree. It makes it, just keeps a game that I love interesting. What about you, Angle? What made you choose to, you know, learn and master Ocarina of Time Randomizer?
I think Tudos and my story is pretty similar here. We both watched the I Ate Your Pie a lot, playing these with friends, and then, you know, Spike Vegeta doing them, and it did look really daunting at first. Like, there's just so many checks. When you haven't played the game in years, you're like, man, how do they do it? And then you watch more and more, and you just kind of learn just from watching them, and you get like more comfortable, and you're like, hey, let's try one, you know, let's just try it out. And so like Tudos and I and friends just were like, yeah, let's play some races, and then you just learn more as you go, and then, you know, here we are years later just racing on GDQ.
We had another question as well that was a really good one, and I'm forgetting the exact verbiage on it, but Nukes and I kind of answered this already. We wanted to get the pro's opinion of it. How do you go about learning Ocarina of Time Randomizer? What tips do you have for just starting out to getting better to eventually becoming racers in Challenge Cup and in the Season 5 top bracket? What's the path?
Well, I think part of it is shows like this, or just watching, you know, other streamers play through the game. You can ask them questions, pick their brain on kind of the logic and where checks are, what they're doing. That helps, you know, start the process of visualizing what you need to do, I think. And then there's some other tools out there, map trackers and such, that can really help keep track of where things might be for you. Tudos, what do you think?
There's a couple ways you can kind of get into it, actually. Obviously, watching a bunch of like either someone doing runs or races like this one tonight. Definitely a good way to do it. 9 whole grains actually he saw a couple and he just jumped right in. He did a seed himself. It took him a while, a couple days, but
Yeah, we don't have to talk about that.
and another thing to kind of prepare yourself for this as well is just kind of play the game yourself and kind of explore all the nooks and crannies of the game. See if you can find all of the gold Skalutas, for instance, or like where all the hidden grottos are, so you can find all those items, things like that. So there's a lot of ways you can kind of prepare yourself to put yourself in the mindset to play a randomizer of this game.
And again, I'll put that link in chat one more time. That Zelda Speedruns link has a lot of great resources to how to get started yourself, and definitely some great advice given here to, just learning how to get better at the game. I just want to thank again both of our runners tonight for putting on a great race for us. I think this was a lot of great learning opportunities here. I also want to thank 9 Whole Grains for being a wonderful co-commentator, as always. I really have loved this show, and I hope you all at home have been enjoying it. Again, also in that what I just posted in chat has the links to all of our Twitch channels, so feel free to come stop by our streams. I know we'd all be happy to answer any questions there as well. And yeah. That is it for tonight's show. We will be back, though. Unfortunately, we will not be back in a couple weeks here because that will be Frame Fatales, but we will be back March 18th, so a month from today, with our 4th episode of Ocarina Improv. I hope to see y'all there. Everyone have a great night. Goodbye.